Chapter 900. The black Porsche Cayenne rushed over thousands of miles to Nanjiang. Su Yun twisted his slightly stiff neck and made a few cracking sounds of his joints rubbing against each other. He was indeed quite tired. Although Sky Wu's spell made him sleep for a full 16 hours, his body did not get any natural rest. Therefore, when he rushed to Nanjiang, Su Yun still felt that his true qi and essence blood were in short supply. This was obviously one of the inevitable phenomena after Su Yun's vital qi was depleted. He did not have the physical and mental strength of the people who practice martial arts and qi in the underground world, but he did not accept the feeling of being an ordinary person. So, the physical exhaustion of many days gradually showed on his expression and body. At this moment, Su Yun gave the impression of a family member who had just stayed up in the hospital to take care of a seriously ill patient at home. There was no part of his body that did not exude exhaustion and tiredness. But Su Yun was Su Yun after all. He was still a member of the Dragon Fury team. Even if he did not have mental strength and physical strength, his perseverance was definitely not something that could be worn down by anything. He believed that he could persevere until he finished dealing with the matters in Nanjiang, then it would not be too late to have a good sleep. Ruan Qingshuang could see Su Yun's tiredness. She knew very well that he needed to rest, even though it was 7:30 on a summer night and the sun was just about to set. Ruan Qingshuang said gently, "Let's find a place to stay first. It's not too late to do things tomorrow. You're tired and need to rest." "I'm fine," Su Yun replied casually, "this time is just right. People who run casinos and those in the healthcare industry are the same. Their business hours are when the sun sets. If we don't do anything tonight, then we'll have to wait until tomorrow night. I'm afraid we won't be able to find anyone during the day. Then we'll wait until tomorrow night." Ruan Qingshuang was very determined. She did not give Su Yun any chance to object. "You've been driving for a whole day, you need to rest. I came to Nanjiang with you, not to hear the truth with my own eyes, but I must take good care of you. This is what I promised Mei Yan and Dove." Ruan Qingshuang had already put it this way. How could she allow Su Yun to refuse? "Okay, then let's find a place to stay first, and then we'll discuss it." "There's nothing to discuss. You can't go anywhere today. You don't have to do anything. You just have to rest well." Ruan Qingshuang had long seen Su Yun's tiredness. Ever since she met Su Yun, except for when Su Yun was seriously injured, she remembered that Su Yun was always full of energy. She had never seen fatigue on his face. Therefore, she was very sure that Su Yun needed to rest. He had to rest. After driving for about 10 minutes, Su Yun drove into a Confucian hotel with a 4-star signboard. Judging from the 4-meter-tall bronze statue of Confucius at the entrance of the hotel, the owner might be a descendant of Confucius. After parking the car, Su Yun and Ruan Qingshuang walked to the front desk to get a room. Su Yun looked up at the row of room prices on the wall and said, 2 rooms. 1 luxurious standard room." Ruan Qingshuang directly interrupted Su Yun and made the decision. When he heard 1 room, Su Yun was still a little confused. In any case, Ruan Qingshuang had always been reserved. This was also why Su Yun asked for 2 rooms. The young lady at the front desk received the money fluently and gave them the room cards without any superfluous expression. It was obvious that a man and a woman had come to get a room. If they wanted 2 single rooms, it would make her feel strange. Su Yun listened. At this time, it was better to obey orders. On the way to the room, Ruan Qingshuang suddenly turned around and explained to Su Yun, "I'm worried that you won't listen to me and will still do what you want to do at night. That's why I only want 1 room. Don't think about going anywhere at night. Be good and sleep." After that, the two had already reached the door of the room. Su Yun nodded obediently, took out the room card, opened the door, and walked into the room. The room was not bad. It was decorated in Chinese style and had an antique taste. No wonder it was called a Confucian hotel. It was quite unique. There were 2 analects of Confucius calligraphy on the wall in the background of the TV. Ruan Qingshuang was obviously surprised by this unique hotel. She did not expect that Nanjiang had nothing to do with Confucius, but there was such a Confucian-themed hotel. Obviously, this kind of hotel was more attractive to foreigners. After all, those modern decorated hotels full of high-tech were not rare in London, Paris, or Los Angeles. However, this kind of antique, Hua Xiar exclusive hotel was really rare. Good taste. Su Yun pouted and looked at the wooden portrait of Confucius carved in the hollow. The owner of this hotel was really quite sophisticated. However, this kind of themed hotel was probably not suitable for ordinary people to book a room. After all, the room's taste was there, but it lacked the kind of ambiguous and charming atmosphere. Generally, men and women who were dating would probably not come to such a hotel. The price was on the high side. It was better to go directly to those ordinary chain hotels. It was cheap and affordable, and the atmosphere was lively. You go take a bath to relax first, and then have a good rest. Ruan Qingxuang stared at the double bed in the room and said to Su Yun a little embarrassedly. She had not been managing Xingkai Hotel in Shenzhen for a day or two. Of course, she knew that the luxury standard rooms were basically double beds. Unless there were 2 men or 2 women, the front desk would ask if they needed a double bedroom. For a man and a woman who booked a room, they would definitely directly book a double bedroom. Su Yun nodded and went to wash up first. When people were particularly tired, the feeling of soaking in a hot bath was definitely refreshing. Anyway, he would not go out to do anything today. Su Yun of course had to relax his body and mind. Soaking in the steaming hot bath, Su Yun closed his eyes in a daze for half an hour. When all the sleepiness in his body was eliminated, he got up and washed up. He wrapped a large bath towel and walked out of the bathroom. What made Su Yun's heart warm was that while he was bathing, Ruan Qingxuang called the hotel and asked for some supper. Although it was simple, it still made Su Yun feel warm in his heart. After soaking in the bath, his body was numb and weak. It was good to eat something to replenish. Moreover, there were 2 cans of beer. You eat something. I'm going to take a bath. When Ruan Qingxuang saw Su Yun coming out, her face was still a little red. Although there was no longer the initial awkwardness between them, after all, the window paper was still open. You don't want to eat? Su Yun asked. Ruan Qingxuang shook her head. A woman's figure is more important. Moreover, we ate so much in the afternoon at the highway rest area. I'm not hungry. Then I won't be polite. Su Yun was not so particular. He would eat when he was hungry. He did not care about the rule of 3 meals a day. His stomach had already been trained when he was in Dragon's Fury. Not to mention eating a regular diet, even if he was overeating, it did not matter. He could finish 20 pounds of mutton in 1 meal. He could also grit his teeth and persevere without eating a grain of rice for 3 to 5 days. It was just a midnight snack. Su Yun Kai was not worried that he would gain more fat. Chapter 901. Ruan Qingxuang wiped her body clean, wrapped herself in a towel, and walked out of the bathroom while wiping her wet hair. Although Su Yun was already prepared, he was still so shocked by this scene that he couldn't close his mouth for a while. Yes, Ruan Qingxuang was the most exquisite woman Su Yun had ever seen. Perhaps she didn't have Zhua Meiyan's charm, Chou Yun's arrogance, Yu Marin's breathtaking beauty, Qin Waner's pure cuteness, Ling Zhiling's delicate gentleness, and Yi Fala's enchanting charm. However, Su Yun couldn't find a single flaw in her. She was like a perfect piece of ancient jade that made people reluctant to let go. In his life in the Dragon Brigade, Su Yun spent most of his energy on missions and training. Even though he grew up with Yu Marin as childhood sweethearts, in reality, he didn't feel the same way when he met Ruan Qingxuang. At that time, Su Yun had already left the place where he had endured 20 years of hardships. It was the time when he needed someone warm and gentle. Therefore, Su Yun's feelings for Ruan Qingxuang were partly incomprehensible to ordinary people. There was a special kind of respect contained within the adoration. Or perhaps it was Ruan Qingxuang's strength, as well as her selflessness and greatness towards Guagua that completely conquered Su Yun. Before leaving the army, he had always thought that they were great heroes. They had done a lot of things that outsiders didn't know about. Although they weren't great enough to save the world like Superman, They had killed a lot of terrorist activities and saved a lot of innocent people from hidden dangers. This was something that ordinary people didn't know about, but they had paid the price of their lives to do it. However, after Su Yun met Ruan Qingshuang, he realized that they weren't the only great people in the world. There were also many ordinary people who were silently contributing their greatness. Just like Ruan Qingshuang, originally a woman who persisted in struggling in the city. Her body and life were already riddled with holes, but she still didn't hesitate to help a lonely and pitiful little girl. She still showed her greatness and selflessness without hesitation. There was no reason, no request, and no reward. She only did what her heart's first reaction was. She thought that if Guagua was alone, even the most basic survival would be a severe test for her. Life is our great teacher. It taught Ruan Qingshuang kindness. Ruan Qingshuang used her kindness to save Guagua's originally colorless and bleak life. Just based on this point, how could Su Yun not be shocked? Whether a person was great or not didn't depend on whether or not they had accomplished any great deeds, but whether or not they had a heart that could shock others. Ruan Qingshuang had such a heart that shocked Su Yun. However, this kind of thing wasn't that great for Ruan Qingshuang herself. She only felt that she did something that kind people would do. She didn't feel that her actions were great. This was the real reason why Su Yun fell in love with her. A person who saw great things as easy as lifting a finger could be considered a true great person. This was something that even Su Yun couldn't do, because Su Yun never saw some of the things he did as simple as that. This didn't mean that Su Yun was pretentious. It was just that 99% of the people in the world would be like Su Yun, or even worse than Su Yun. After all, many of Su Yun's tasks were completed perfectly by risking his life. He had the capital to think that he was great. There were too many mediocre people in the world who praised themselves as Lei Feng after helping an old lady cross the road once. There were also too many cadres, leaders, and philanthropists who liked to pretend in front of the media and reporters. They liked their trivial great deeds to be exposed and publicized, but they didn't realize that this made them more vulgar and ordinary. Ordinary people would care about those praises and compliments. Great people only cared about what they did, that was all. The universe was vast. No matter how great a person was, he was just a speck of dust. In World War II, Churchill's conscience was not blinded by anger. Martin Luther King, Jr., the founder of the Black Liberation Movement, and the great leader who saved 400 million Hua Xia people from the abyss of suffering, were just specks of dust in this vast universe. Even these great people were like this, let alone me? Su Yun's smile was calm and calm. They were all specks of dust, but even specks of dust were great. Ruan Qingshuang was stared at by Su Yun for a while. Her cheeks and neck couldn't help but feel a real burning sensation. This feeling was like, how to describe it? It wasn't shy, nor was it nervous. Perhaps it was simply the uncontrollable excitement of liking the person she liked. I'm going to brush my teeth. In order to avoid embarrassment, Su Yun found the best excuse at the moment to avoid Ruan Qingshuang's gaze. Only by splashing cold water on his face could he sober up as soon as possible. During this trip to Nanjiang, he must help Ruan Qingshuang find out the truth of the matter. Whether Ruan Chao was alive or dead, there should be a conclusion. He couldn't let Ruan Qingshuang bear this pressure for the rest of her life. If something really happened to her brother, Su Yun would never let go of anyone involved in this matter. If the law couldn't give those evildoers the punishment they deserved, he would. After a simple wash, Su Yun was much more awake. When he came out again, Ruan Qingshuang had already cleaned up the mess he took care of. Rest early. Ruan Qingshuang mustered up her courage and tried to make herself not nervous. After saying that, she lay down on one side of the double bed. The girl was already so generous. If Su Yun didn't have a little tolerance, it would seem pretentious. He also lay on the other side of the bed. The television screen was still broadcasting the news. It was about a group of extremist thugs in the Tibetan area being arrested. Su Yun was very clear about how dangerous these dangerous people were. He had participated in such activities to arrest terrorist organizations. Presumably, during this period of time, the Brothers of Dragon's Fury weren't idle. These extremist terrorists must have some unknown transactions and inside stories with specific international countries. These people should be severely punished. Those who betrayed democracy and the country for their own selfish interests didn't deserve any sympathy. This time, there must be an expert among the extremists. Su Yun heard from Lin Guo that CFAIs was also active in Tibetan during this period of time. Thinking of this, Su Yun's mouth revealed a trace of a smile. In this world, there wasn't only their dragon brigade. There were many people similar to him and CFAIs. They silently contributed to the country and society, but never received recognition and praise from the public. They didn't care about those worldly things. They just wanted a perfect outcome. In the world we live in, every day changes rapidly. Every day, all kinds of things happen that we don't know about. Crises, conspiracies, negotiations. There are too many things that ordinary people don't participate in, but it doesn't mean that they don't exist. It's just that ordinary people don't come into contact with them. Have you participated in this kind of terrorist mission before? Ruan Qingxuang couldn't help but ask when she saw Su Yun looking at her seriously. Su Yun nodded. Then there must be a lot of danger. Capturing these guys must have a high price. Ruan Qingxuang's curiosity was aroused. As an ordinary person who couldn't be more ordinary in Huaxia, she never had the opportunity to understand these behind-the-scenes matters. But today, Su Yun was beside her. Naturally, her curiosity couldn't be controlled. Anyone would be like this. What's the most dangerous thing you've encountered? Su Yun didn't know how to answer. The most dangerous thing he encountered was when the lives of the entire Dragon's Fury brothers fell into the enemy's conspiracy. The price he paid for it was Yin Long's death. This matter would forever be a regret Su Yun would never be able to erase. He didn't want to talk about it. Even if Ruan Qingxuang asked, he still didn't want to talk about it. He picked up the remote control and said indifferently, "That's all in the past. There's no point in talking about it." Chapter 902. Su Yun randomly switched through the TV channels. It was just a small thing similar to a USB drive, and he could watch so many TV channels by plugging it into the TV. Huaxia really didn't lack smart people. It was just that too many smart people didn't do proper things. Those who researched these pirated and infringing things were considered to have a conscience. There were also those who didn't have a conscience who were the real bastards. If one were to ask what those brainless bastards had done, what would they have done? Every morning, most of the youtiao that the majority of the working class ate was cooked in the gutter oil that those brainless bastards had invented. Every night, most of the ordinary milk powder that Huaxia's ordinary children drank might have been added with the melamine that those unscrupulous bastards had invented. Su Yun cursed angrily in his mind. Suddenly, the scene on the TV changed, and a familiar image of a female celebrity from Japan appeared on the screen, posing coquettishly. Oh my God, isn't this the goddess Bordeaux Yui? Just as Su Yun hesitated for a moment, there was an ecstatic moaning sound from the TV. This made Su Yun dumbfounded. How could such a passionate Japanese porn star appear on this thing? At this time, not only was Su Yun dumbfounded, but Ruan Qingxuang was also completely dumbfounded. She couldn't bear to look at that scene. In shame, Ruan Qingxuang pulled the blanket over her eyes. Su Yun finally reacted and hurriedly pressed the power button to turn off the TV. However, that scene left a deep impression in their minds. Sigh. Su Yun let out a long sigh. What anti-pornography and illegal activities, cleaning up the internet, they were all done so comprehensively. Even a portion of online novels were investigated until they couldn't raise their heads. But this kind of thing actually existed. It was really a disgrace to Huaxia's national style. They should strictly crack down on it and thoroughly destroy the black market that made the web TV sticks. Also, they should catch the smart bastards who made this thing and lock them up for 3 to 5 years so that they could reflect on it and not apply the knowledge they learned in school to these messy things. They should contribute more to the country and develop more things that could make the country rich and strong so that the Americans and the Japanese wouldn't dare to look down on Huaxia. This was good. More than half of the people with real talent either ran to Europe and America to enjoy the fresh air and taste the authentic olive oil or stayed in Huaxia to study these messy and meaningless things. If these people used their energy to develop their country's science and technology and economic development, Huaxia would definitely be 50 years ahead. After turning off the TV, Su Yun fell into an indescribable feeling. It was as if thousands of little ants were crawling around in his heart, making him feel uncomfortable all over. Ruan Qingxuang, who was lying beside him, also felt the same. In this kind of atmosphere, in this kind of occasion, in this kind of world where only the two of them were in, the feelings that she had been struggling to suppress in her heart quickly climbed to the critical point that was about to explode. In the past, Ruan Qingxuang had been suppressing her feelings. There were too many reasons. There were too many people around her and too many trivial things that didn't allow her to think about the things and problems between her and Su Yun. Although Ruan Qingxuang didn't have the time, energy, or even the opportunity to think about the things between her and Su Yun, it didn't mean that she didn't have this kind of impulse in her heart. Finally, they came to a world where only the two of them were in. What reason did Ruan Qingxuang have to refuse the power that she longed for in her heart? Thinking about the days that she knew Su Yun, this man brought her everything. Not only did he improve her by leaps and bounds in terms of material things, she was even more grateful for the spiritual comfort and encouragement. It was Su Yun who helped her solve the trouble caused by the hooligans. It was Su Yun who helped her get through the persistence that she once wanted to give up. It was Su Yun who taught her to be strong and to reject the evildoers. It was Su Yun who ignited her hope for life. It was Su Yun who gave her the courage to go home again. And now, Su Yun brought her to Nanjiang without hesitation. He wanted to help her remove the responsibility and burden that had been weighing on her heart for a long time. Su Yun was also grateful to Ruan Qingxuang. If it wasn't for Ruan Qingxuang's appearance, perhaps he wouldn't have been involved in one trouble after another that couldn't be solved. However, he definitely couldn't get rid of his own inner demons and might still be in deep pain now. What Ruan Qingxuang brought to him was not only a brand new beginning, but also a new life that he had never experienced before. The pain that Su Yun couldn't get rid of had gradually disappeared with his encounter with Ruan Qingxuang on the east side of the river. In the past, Su Yun thought that he was the person who had been through the most hardships in the world, both mentally and physically. However, after he really came into contact with Ruan Qingxuang, he realized that how many ordinary people had been through less hardships than him. Everyone had their own ups and downs. Life wouldn't be smooth sailing. People living in this world would more or less stumble a few times. This was something that no one could avoid. In life, physically, emotionally, academically, and in career. Thinking about it carefully, who dared to say that they had never encountered a mountain that they thought they couldn't climb over, a pain that they couldn't forget? Even Mount Everest could be conquered. What else was there that couldn't be overcome? Everyone had encountered a predicament. Most people had even fallen into a desperate situation. In the end, some people persevered, but some people fell at the foot of the mountain in front of them. This was the difference between a winner and a loser. Even if a strong person was forced into a desperate situation, they could still rely on their strong spiritual power to survive. And a weak person, even if faced with a small river in front of them, would choose to retreat and give up. When we were in a desperate situation, we might as well think about it. We might as well look at the people around us. Perhaps, many people were under more pressure than we were, but they were still calm. This kind of person would always be a strong person. A strong person who wouldn't be defeated by any difficulty. At this time, who would have the nerve to wipe their nose in tears and say that they really couldn't endure it anymore? Su Yun, do you think your life has meaning? Although Ruan Qingxuang and Su Yun hadn't spoken, they were thinking about the same thing. That was the meaning that life's hardships brought to them. Yes. Su Yun turned around. Unknowingly, his hand had already wrapped around Ruan Qingxuang's waist. If he hadn't touched Ruan Qingxuang, his answer might have been the complete opposite. Even if he had done many things that were praised by the world. Ruan Qingxuang felt numb all over. Before she met Su Yun, she had never treated herself as a woman. Even if she had Su Yun by her side, she realized that she was also a woman who needed the love of her heart to take care of her. But she had never really asked for this extravagant hope. Now that Su Yun was hugging her so gently, she could feel her soul being comforted. I feel that the greatest meaning of my life is that I insisted on my own choice and left my hometown to meet you, the person who helped the weak. Then the greatest meaning of my life is that I went to Hadong and met you, who didn't know what to do. Su Yun smiled very calmly. Facing Ruan Qingxuang, who suddenly turned around to face him, Su Yun had no reason to hesitate. His body and mind were blank. At this moment, he only wanted to follow his most primitive consciousness and desire to do what any man or woman would do. When Ruan Qingxuang's cold red lips were sealed by two thick and strong lips, she swore that all the bones in her body became completely numb. Su Yun was her biggest support in this life. Without him, Ruan Qingxuang definitely couldn't imagine her future life. Chapter 903. Let nature take its course. This was a common phrase Su Yun used to express his feelings, whether it was between a man and a woman or between brothers. Sometimes, when the feelings reached a certain point, it was inevitable that things would happen. He would try his best to sprint on Ruan Qingxuang, who had opened her heart and accepted him, because none of them wanted to suppress their feelings, nor did they want to restrain their behavior. Just like Su Yun could sacrifice himself for his brothers, he just wanted to spend all his energy on Ruan Qingxuang. Even if this kind of charge of leading thousands of soldiers and horses to besiege the city made Su Yun sweat profusely, he still couldn't get enough of it. To borrow an exaggerated chewing gum advertising slogan, simply can't stop. Of course, it was necessary to complain, how sensitive are the taste buds of those guys who can't stop at all? Why do I feel that it's tasteless after chewing for 3 to 5 minutes? Obviously, many people would say, exaggeration is the most basic technique in advertising. Have you ever seen a thumb-sized beef piece in instant noodles? If it's really like the braised beef noodles on the cover, it won't cost you 5 yuan per barrel, but at least 50 yuan. That's probably the wholesale price. Otherwise, you can be the boss of the instant noodles factory. Ruan Qingxuang found a very good word to describe this feeling of pain and happiness, that is, happiness. Born in a mountain village, for so many years, the circle of life and reality made her feel that she would never be able to touch the word happiness, but Su Yun brought her this feeling. Happiness is something that can't be described with words. Everyone's definition of happiness is different. If there are 1,000 harlots in 1,000 people's eyes, then there is a happiness in everyone's heart. Happiness can bring people happiness, but sometimes pain can also bring people happiness. This is a contradictory thing, just like Su Yun and Ruan Qingxuang. Most of the time, Ruan Qingxuang was worried about Su Yun, waiting for him, and being absent-minded. But every time she saw him, she was still full of happiness. Even if different girls appeared around Su Yun, Ruan Qingxuang wouldn't blame or resent him. She was satisfied as long as she could see him. The lower the demand, the easier it is to satisfy people. For example, for a family with an annual income of less than 30 to 50,000 yuan, after deducting the expenses and interpersonal relationship costs, there is probably not much left. If you can buy a small F-egg-type car, you will feel great driving it out. But for a peripheral woman who can earn 30 to 50,000 yuan by sleeping with a man, even if you give her a BMW Z4 or an Audi TT, she will still not be satisfied and will not feel happy. Only by driving a Maserati can they get the vanity satisfaction of the soul. After making love, Su Yun was already sweating like rain. Ruan Qingxuang was also dripping with sweat. The two went from the bed to the bathroom. Even when they were walking, they were reluctant to leave each other's side. Finally, the warm bath made the two of them calm down. After the shower, Ruan Qingxuang's face was completely covered with red, and there was no trace of her original skin color. The two of them didn't say anything and just slept in each other's arms. No one could disturb them now and feel the happiness between each other. The night in Nanjiang was extraordinarily calm, but at this moment, on the flight of Shenzhong Airlines flying overseas, it was the complete opposite. Once the plane encountered strong clear air turbulence, the plane could avoid thunderstorms, but if it encountered clear air turbulence, the plane would have to resign itself to fate. Fangya felt that this trip with Lin Gu was really worth it. She was on a plane for the first time as a passenger, and she actually encountered clear air turbulence that she had never encountered before. At first, the plane was only slightly bumpy. Generally, the The passengers who flew here and there often were prepared. After all, who hasn't encountered turbulence a few times? But in the following time, everyone began to lose their color. After all, Ma Hang's incident had not been over for long, and the continuous news reports were still vivid in their minds. Even a brave person like Lin Gu couldn't help but frown. If he was alone on this plane, it would be fine. At most, he would curse a few times. The damn plane was shaking so hard that he couldn't even write a will. But this time was different. Fong Ye was next to him, and he was the one who invited her to come with him. If something happened to her, Lin Gu simply didn't save himself, and directly fell to his death. The plane was like a drunken boar who was seriously riding on the clouds. It either trembled as it ascended, or suddenly descended. The feeling of free fall for more than 5 or 6 seconds in a row directly made the entire plane dead silent. At this time, a woman in the front row of Lin Gu, who was probably riding a plane for the first time, finally couldn't control her emotions. Whenever the plane suddenly fell, she would scream miserably and sorrowfully. She was the only one on the plane who was screaming. Everyone was silent and didn't dare to say a word, but their hearts were probably in their throats. Who knew if this plane could withstand the torment? What if the wings were broken? Wouldn't they fall directly into hell like the angel Lucifer whose wings were broken? After all, Fong Ye was a professional. While controlling her suffocation and vomiting due to the sudden rise of the plane, she comforted the woman in the front row. "Big sister, don't panic. We will definitely be fine. You hold on. The plane will soon pass through the turbulence." Before he could finish his sentence, the plane actually made a 360-degree turn. If it weren't for the seat belts, the people on the plane would have fallen everywhere, right? Although no one was thrown out, the tumbling internal organs made a considerable number of people unable to control themselves. They vomited all over themselves. It was estimated that after this flight, there would be another group of people who were afraid of flying in the world. Although the plane was the least likely means of transportation to have an accident, once an accident happened, there was basically no one left alive. This was why most people who often flew would have a phobia of flying. The feeling of counting the seconds on the plane was absolutely uncomfortable. Finally, after 15 minutes of hellish torture, the plane slowly stabilized. The crew sent good news. They had passed through the turbulence, and everything was over. They asked everyone not to panic. Only then did Lin Gu wipe away the cold sweat on his forehead. He was really scared out of his wits. Everything calmed down. When he looked at Fong Ye again, his feelings were greatly different. It was so dangerous just now, but she was still able to divert her attention to comfort others. After all, even the stewardess on duty had no time to care about others at this moment. The passengers in the entire plane seemed to have walked around the palace of the King of Hell. Many people couldn't help but shed tears of fear. Perhaps, at that moment, most people didn't think of themselves, but other people they loved. The important people in their lives made them feel so reluctant. Many adults silently wiped the tears from the corners of their eyes. Perhaps, they finally didn't have to worry about leaving their children and being misunderstood by their children that they didn't want them anymore. Human beings were the most emotional animals in the world. Whether a kind person or a despicable person, at the moment of life and death, they would still realize their own good side. Lin Gu looked at Fong Ye with a smile. If it weren't for the woman in the front row who kept turning back and thanking him, Lin Gu really wanted to pull her over and kiss her. There was no reason. He just wanted to do so, that was all. However, the eyes of outsiders still stopped Lin Gu from doing what he wanted to do. Chapter 904. Although Su Yun and Ruan Qingshuang knew very well that illegal businesses like casinos and chicken coops wouldn't be open for business during the day, they still followed the address that Hua Zhongxiong had given them. In less than a morning's time, they easily found the place. According to Hua Zhongxiong's description, it was a place with a video screening room, and there was a hidden gambling place inside. Of course, that was a few years ago. In today's society, even the most backward places wouldn't have a video screening room, right? After all, the speed of social development was advancing by leaps and bounds. Even internet cafes had been declining for many years. Other than large clubs, A considerable number of them were half dead, not to mention video screening rooms, which had long been extinct. Now, in front of Su Yun was a tea house. Ruan Qingxuang couldn't help but frown. We didn't find the wrong place. Could that person have remembered wrongly? There's no video screening room. Isn't this clearly a tea house? Should we call again to ask and confirm? No need to ask, Su Yun said. Sister Shuang, casinos are places where sheep's head is hung but dog meat is sold. It's just that a few years ago, sheep's head was hung here, and now it's a goat's head. But the essence hasn't changed. It's still selling dog meat. Hua Zhongxiong even suffered from depression because of this incident. I believe that he definitely didn't remember the wrong place. Gambling in a tea house? Ruan Qingxuang was a little confused. She had never been to a tea house before, but she subconsciously thought that it was a place where scholars and refined scholars sat together to drink tea and chat. The people drinking tea should be writers or painters. Everyone gathered together to talk about creation and how to use works to criticize reality or transmit positive energy. How could it be a casino? Su Yun shrugged. How many tea houses nowadays didn't have a few hidden doors and a few mahjong tables? Otherwise, who would come to drink tea? Scholars and refined scholars? There were a lot of high-end private clubs. How could a small tea house on the street attract people who thought they were virtuous and virtuous? This wasn't derogatory or sarcastic. If literary people didn't think highly of themselves, then they wouldn't have the capital to write good works that would be immortalized for generations to come. Of course, this was referring to a real literary scholar, not a literary loafer who was unsatisfied with half a bottle. Perhaps after this place was changed into a tea house, gamblers would no longer be prevented from coming here to gamble during the day. However, the day was not the right time. Su Yun was not stupid enough to cause trouble for himself for no reason. After confirming the location, he left with Ruan Qingxuang for the time being. Although Nanjiang specialty snacks were well known, they were not to the liking of Ruan Qingxuang. Su Yun ate with relish. He could now list out 100 examples of the delicacies from all over Huaxia. As for eating, anything that could fill one's stomach shouldn't be wasted. For someone like Su Yun who had been starving in the mountains, there was no food that was not appetizing. He had swallowed snake gall, chewed bean worms, and when he was hungry, he could even dig out an ant's nest and suffocate it in a water tank to eat. Of course, those harsh survival training in the wild had long been a thing of the past, but it had created Su Yun's frugal habit. Only people who had been starved knew the preciousness of food. Seeing that Ruan Qingxuang had some things that were really difficult to eat, Su Yun didn't hesitate and directly helped her solve it. Soon he was full. Ruan Qingxuang had thoughts, but she didn't have much appetite. However, she couldn't persuade Su Yun. She still bought a bai ji bun on the way back to the hotel. When the sun finally set, the streetlights in Nanjiang City had been turned on. The traffic on the road was not sparse. For a city like this that relied on coal mining, the streets were full of luxury cars. It was enough to hold a car exhibition in a small county. Especially those kinds of large SUVs, such as the Land Rover Range Rover, BMW X5, Grand Cherokee, and the Porsche Cayenne that Su Yun drove. They were not rare on this big road. From time to time, one could see the Barbassa's six-wheeled off-road that was close to 10 million. Let's put it this way. A luxury car that cost 5 million didn't have a sense of superiority here. The A8 and 7 Series or Mercedes-Benz S-Class were just like the A6, 5 Series, and E-Class in a small county. They were really common. Ferraris and Lamborghinis were rare. Because the road conditions in the city were quite bad and bumpy, off-road vehicles were paid attention to. In contrast, supercars were much rarer. Only a few people who weren't afraid of playing with a broken chassis would get a bull to run on the ground. It was a waste of natural resources. When Su Yun drove to the tea house, there were already many cars parked outside the tea house. From the imported Audi Q7 to the domestic Chongfeng Cheetah, there were cars of all prices. Based on this, Su Yun could be sure that this was a place that was pretending to be a sheep's head but selling dog meat. How many cultured people would drive a Chongfeng Cheetah to drink tea? After all, the older generation didn't have driver's licenses yet. Cultured people generally didn't know how to drive. It wasn't like now, where the streets were full of road killers. If the line was not busy, then the lane was randomly changed. Sometimes, he really felt that the kind of adults who brought children to run red lights were not good people. You already had no quality and were incurable, but you shouldn't harm the children, right? Quality had to be grasped from the beginning. Stopping at a red light was the most basic thing. The hua xia style of crossing the road had long been ridiculed by other countries internationally more than once. In the eyes of some pedestrians, the traffic lights were fart. Some drivers were the same. The traffic lights without cameras were just decorations. What was the harm in running them? Anyway, it wouldn't deduct points. Su Yun and Ruan Qingxuang got out of the car, locked the car, and walked straight into the tea house. The lady boss of the tea house greeted them with a smile. "Oh, the two of you are here again. Please come in. What would you like to drink?" The people who opened the door to do business greeted everyone with a smile. People who had never seen them before were like regulars. There was no pressure at all to greet them. Although she called Ruan Qingxuang a beauty with a smile on the surface, she didn't know how many times she had cursed a fox spirit in her heart. If a woman who came to gamble with a man wasn't a fox spirit, what was she? She was a man's plaything. "We are not here to drink tea. We are here to find someone." Ruan Qingxuang didn't have so many tricks up her sleeves. She went straight to the point. Su Yun knew that she was anxious, so he couldn't say anything. After all, she was looking for news of her brother. Anyone would be anxious. When she heard that they weren't here to spend money, but to find someone, the lady boss's face changed. Could it be that a customer's wife came to catch them gambling? Find someone? "Miss, you have come to the wrong place. I am the only woman here. Who else can there be?" "Lady boss, you don't have to pretend. We are all people in society. Who doesn't know about this little trick?" Su Yun smiled slightly. "But don't worry. We are not here to trouble your customers. We are just here to inquire about a person." Although the lady boss's face eased a little, she was still a little unhappy. "Go to the police station to inquire about a person. What's the use of looking for an old woman like me? Go find someone who checks household registration. Go, go, go. I am busy here. I don't have time to waste with you. I won't see you out." Before they asked anything, the lady boss was in a hurry to see them out. Obviously, she was afraid of delaying her business and was too lazy to talk nonsense with them. However, Ruan Qingxuang didn't give up. She took out a photo of Ruan Chao from her pocket and stood in front of the lady boss. "I just want to ask you one thing. Have you seen this person? 18 or 19, thin and tall." Chapter 905. As soon as the lady boss raised her voice, two sturdy young men with dragon and tiger tattoos came out from a hidden door at the side. Both of them glared at Su Yun fiercely. After all, Ruan Qingxuang was a beautiful woman. Even if the other party was a hooligan, they still had a tender heart for the fairer sex. They could only vent their vicious attitude on Su Yun. Su Yun did not care about this. He still smiled and said to the lady boss, "We're just here to inquire about a person. There's no need to be at daggers drawn. Lady boss, we're all business people. We welcome people with a smile. Amiability brings wealth. There's no need to make a big fuss. This is not a lucky thing. I don't think you're here to make money for me. Who are you? Let me tell you, if you want to check my shop, then take out a written search order. Otherwise, don't even think about it." The lady boss was so nervous. She completely thought that Su Yun and Ruan Qingxuang were civil servants who came for a surprise inspection. "Let me tell you, my brother-in-law is from the procuratorate. You'd better know your place." "It's a misunderstanding, a misunderstanding." Su Yun explained, "We're definitely not here to do any inspection. I know about your tea house's business. Why should I interfere in something that has nothing to do with me? I just want to inquire about a person. There's absolutely no other meaning." As soon as Su Yun's voice fell, the real boss of the tea house could not help but reveal himself. He finally walked out from the back room. "Friend, my place is just a place to play cards and drink tea. My wife also said that if you want to find someone, it's best to go to the police station. The people there are more useful than us. We're just ordinary people. I'm afraid we can't help you much. Boss, I'm an acquaintance. When you were still operating the video hall, I often came here to play." Su Yun's words were obviously a lie. When had he not come to Nanjiang to gamble? However, the tea house boss was stunned. He looked at Su Yun carefully and frowned. "Friend, you're too good at joking. Let's not talk about the old acquaintances here. I even know those who have only been here once. In my line of work, if I'm not good at recognizing people, I might fail miserably one day. But I really don't have any impression of you at all." Su Yun could be sure of one thing. The boss of this place had not changed. The guy who opened the tea house was still the person who opened the video hall. Moreover, this guy was quite confident in his ability to remember people. It could even be said to the point of conceit. How could such a cautious and knowledgeable person forget the incident that happened in front of his own shop a few years ago? Su Yun did not continue to argue with the tea house boss about whether he was an old acquaintance or not. He directly took the photo in Ruan Qingxuang's hand and placed it in front of the tea house boss. He was familiar with all the local ruffians in Nanjiang. After so many years in Nanjiang, there were not many people who dared to fight with his subordinate, Diao Hu. He could not help but sigh. They did not come with good intentions. Seeing that Diao Hu was defeated in one move, how could the Golden Leopard be willing? Diao Hu was his sworn brother who had gone through fire and water with him. He could not just watch Diao Hu be beaten down. Su Yun knocked his knee out, but before he could land, the Golden Leopard pounced on him from behind like a hungry dog and strangled him by the neck. Su Yun was a little depressed. If it was a normal day, how could he not react? But now that he had lost his true qi, he was no longer the Yen Long of the past. Although he still had his strength, his reaction speed was not as fast as before. The Golden Leopard strangled Su Yun's neck and immediately roared, "Brother Hu, get up and beat him up." He was quite confident in his own strength. Not many people who had been restrained by him from behind had been able to turn the tables around. As long as Diao Hu got up and gave this kid a few punches, he could guarantee that he would obediently kneel down and kowtow to them. This was an opportunity. Diao Hu endured the burning pain in his lower abdomen and stood up with difficulty. He must make this kid kneel down and call him master. But who would have thought that Su Yun would suddenly take a horse stance and use his lower body to perform a back throw? The Golden Leopard that was strangling him was directly thrown into the air by Su Yun's back throw. On the other side, Diao Hu had just stood up in pain when the Golden Leopard's body landed heavily on the ground. A third of his teeth were knocked out by the tile floor and he was bleeding profusely. This guy was too ruthless. The tea house owner and lady boss were dumbfounded. Diao Hu and the Golden Leopard could fight. They were famous in Nanjiang for being able to fight. They had never been afraid of anyone in a one-on-one fight, but today, they were defeated in just a few moves. How could this be? Could it be that these two brats had taken too many drugs and could not use their strength? Looking at the two guys whose bones were broken from the fall, Su Yun clapped his hands in disdain and said, "If you haven't had enough, then continue. Don't be like a girl and dawdle." Chapter 906. How could a woman like the lady boss tolerate Diao Hu behaving so atrociously in her territory and killing so many people? She couldn't possibly think as thoroughly as her man and the Golden Leopard. When she saw Diao Hu, whom she had always thought highly of, being thrown to the ground, her mind went blank for a moment. Then she began to howl loudly, "Murder! Murder!" The tea house owner's heart skipped a beat and his face changed. This woman's mouth should be sewn up. The kid in front of him was obviously trained. Maybe he was like those FBI agents in the movies. Of course, he was trained by the relevant departments in Huaxia. Could it be that the investigation from a few years ago was still ongoing? He had spent a lot of money to pull strings for that matter. The leaders of Nanjiang and the police had promised him to turn a blind eye to it. Moreover, he was not the one who ended the matter, nor was he one of his people. In the end, this matter had almost become a supernatural incident. He could not explain it to anyone clearly. Originally, no one had caused trouble for him all these years. He thought that he could put this matter to the back of his mind and forget about it forever. However, today, someone had come knocking on his door. The kid that he had ordered his men to kill at the entrance of his casino back then was dragged away. It had nothing to do with him. He just wanted to teach the kid a lesson. He did not want to kill him at all. Who knew that the kid would disappear without a trace? Sometimes, people really believed in fate. As soon as the lady boss shouted, Diao Hu and Jin Bao's underlings rushed out with machetes in their hands. Although this tea house didn't look big, it was a completely different world inside. There was a casino that was a few hundred square meters in size, and there were also a dozen small rooms. If this scale was placed in Las Vegas, it would be bull** T. However, in Huaxia, where gambling was prohibited, the scale was not small. If he did not have a dozen men to maintain order and security, this business would not be easy to do. After all, although he had prestige in Nanjiang, he was not someone who could cover the sky with one hand. Over the years, there were many talents in Nanjiang, but there had never been an ambitious person who could unify the world. Most of them were afraid of each other but did not think much of each other. Under such circumstances, whether or not you had enough men who could fight was the capital to establish yourself. If the owner of the tea house didn't have Diao Hu, Jin Bao, and a dozen of his subordinates, he wouldn't have been able to stand being harassed by others. The dozen or so young men were all strong. Their eyes were staring at Su Yun as if they were afraid that he didn't know that they wanted to eat him alive. With the support of his brothers, Golden Leopard regained his courage. He ordered his men to help Diao Hu up while thinking about how to take advantage of the chaotic battle. Golden Leopard had fought many times and was clearly a ruthless veteran. He waved his hand and shouted, "Go!" As long as Su Yun was surrounded by his subordinates, he would directly take out his knife and stab him twice. This matter was simple. In the eyes of the Golden Leopard, no matter how powerful a person was, they would not be able to withstand 2 stabs from a knife. As long as there was blood, even a hero's legs would go soft. Of course, this was just Golden Leopard's understanding. After all, he had never seen any heroes. The people he had stabbed with a knife were just a bunch of hooligans. Their legs would go weak at the sight of blood, which meant that they were not even qualified to be a hooligan. The real hooligans were all born from the edge of the blade. Seeing that the dozen or so subordinates were about to bury Su Yun in the sea of people, Golden Leopard sneered and took out a sharp dagger from his waist. The last hit job had the lowest risk and was also the most popular job. In the past, Diao Hu liked to do this job. Now that Diao Hu was crippled, he naturally had to take over. Looking at the shiny silver machetes, Ruan Qingshuang was completely at a loss. She didn't know how to deal with it. She didn't know how Su Yun could solve the problem in front of her. Other than running, she couldn't think of any other way. Then, there was a crash. A custom-made QBQ extendable baton had appeared in Su Yun's hand out of nowhere. He did not care about the shiny silver machetes in the hands of these people at all. He raised the baton and swung it down, smashing the wrists of the people in front of him with lightning speed. This was an item that was used by the American police. Not to mention Su Yun, even if Ruan Qingshuang used all her strength to smash it, the steel head would be enough to break the wrists of these people. Then, there were a few screams, accompanied by the clanging sound of the machetes falling to the ground. Then, Su Yun didn't stay idle. He rushed into the crowd with a baton, and every move he made was aimed at the vital points of these people. Su Yun's ferocious momentum had obviously scared half of the people. This group of brats who usually swaggered around in fights had never seen such a battle before. Before they could even react, they had already been knocked to the ground by Su Yun's rod. 2 minutes later, Golden Leopard, who was waiting for the last hit, was really convinced and admitted defeat. He had lived for so long, but he had never seen such a fierce person before. He wasn't human at all. He didn't hesitate at all. All of his attacks were aimed at the vital points of the people's bodies, but they weren't fatal. More than 10 people who were swaggering with machetes were all lying on the ground in just 2 minutes. Because the commotion was too big, the people who were gambling inside didn't dare to take the risk and stay. It was obvious that there were people who wanted to destroy the place, or there was a sudden inspection. In 2 minutes, the people inside also came out of the secret door. Not a single person was left. At this time, this tea house that was selling dog meat under sheep's head could be said to be empty. Brother, can you listen to my explanation? The tea house owner finally spoke in a trembling voice. What do you want to ask? I will tell you everything I know. The activity just now was too fierce. Su Yun put the baton behind his back. He massaged his right shoulder and said, "Wouldn't it have been better if you did this earlier? I wouldn't have had to spend so much effort on you. In this case, let's talk inside." The tea house owner invited carefully. Su Yun glanced at the lady boss and golden leopard, and finally fixed his gaze on the tea house owner's face. No need. It's better to be straightforward here. The tea house owner sighed and drooped his head dispiritedly. The little brother in the photo did come to our place in the past. He and another young man. I know the purpose of their visit, and I know that they have money. Their coal boss told me about this. They each took 100,000 to cover their losses. Su Yun frowned. How do you know about this? Because their boss knew that they didn't have enough money and still needed it, so he asked me to set a trap for them. He let them lose all their money to me, and then I can keep 100,000. The tea house owner said, I was also blinded by greed. I just didn't expect them to come back and rob after they lost the money. So you hacked him to death? Su Yun sneered. He didn't expect there to be a conspiracy. The coal boss of the private mine was really a good-for-nothing. He found someone to cover for him and even wanted to extort the money back. This person was too ruthless. The tea house owner's face turned bitter when he heard this. I really didn't. I did bring people to hack them, but I didn't dare to hack them to death. It was someone else who took him away. I suspect it was the coal boss. But he refused to admit it. In the end, this matter fell on my head. I spent a lot of money to settle it. That bastard didn't admit it and even asked me for money. This matter couldn't be separated from the coal boss. Su Yun continued coldly, Where is he? After that incident, I cut ties with him. I don't have any contact with him now. His mine was sealed. Later on, it seems like he opened another mine, but I really don't know. The tea house owner smiled bitterly. He really wasn't lying. Su Yun's lips curled up slightly. He couldn't find him, but he knew who could. Jin Kwang. Chapter 907. It was a pity that Su Yun did not stay idle before he left. He gave the tea house owner a huge welcome gift and burned down the place. Who would dare to call the police because these were gambling devices? Wasn't that just asking for trouble? Sigh, what kind of shameful thing did he do to deserve such a huge retribution? The lady boss of the tea house almost coughed out her lungs from crying. This was her and her man's lifetime of hard work. In Nanjiang, when had they ever suffered such a huge humiliation? And all of this was happening right in front of her eyes. What was even more infuriating was that her man didn't even say a word. He just let her smash the place into smithereens by herself and even lit up the fire with a cigarette. Looking at the black Cayenne that leisurely drove away, the lady boss of the tea house angrily punched her man with her soft fist. Are you still a man? A kid who doesn't even have a name is riding on your neck and peeing, and you're still indifferent. Are you trying to throw away the face of our 18 generations of ancestors? What do you know? The owner of the tea house no longer suppressed the anger in his heart. He angrily scolded and pushed his wife to the side. The lady boss staggered and fell to the ground, but he didn't feel sorry for her at all. He still scolded, You have long hair and short eyes. That kid is not someone we can afford to offend. It's all thanks to my ancestors that I'm standing here alive today. Jin Bao had never seen the boss so angry. He stood at the side and did not dare to interrupt. Indeed, that guy was definitely not an ordinary person. They could not afford to offend him. He alone caused so much trouble for them. In Nanjiang, there was probably no force that could do that. But the other party was just one person. He beat them up right in front of their eyes until they cried for their parents. Then, he patted his butt and left. They didn't even dare to make a sound. Now, Jin Bao's mind was filled with thoughts of how to bring Jiao Hu and this group of brothers to the hospital for treatment. This was the most tragic battle he had experienced in the past 20 to 30 years. Fortunately, the other party did not hold it against him in the end. Otherwise, he would probably be like Jiao Hu, lying on the ground without the strength to stand up. At this moment, no one knew that Jiao Hu's spine had been crushed by the golden leopard. Retribution. Retribution. We won't be able to survive in Nanjiang. The lady boss squatted on the ground and wailed as she slapped the ground with both hands. Because he didn't dare to call the police, the tea house owner could only ask Jin Bao to help him put out the fire with a fire extinguisher. The remaining small sparks were also put out by Jin Bao with his clothes. Then, he found a car and rushed to the hospital with his injured brothers. The owner of the tea house just sat alone in front of the door, lowering his head and smoking. How could he not be worried? He had to make plans for his next step. After returning to the hotel, Su Yun immediately contacted Jin Kwang. After receiving a call from Chairman Su, this big explosion in Nanjiang was so excited that he spoke incoherently. Chairman Su, what instructions do you have? Have you returned to Shenzhen? Ha ha ha, it's not too late now. Do you want to come over and have a drink with me? Director Jin, I am in Nanjiang. Su Yun's words made Jin Kwang even more confused. Nanjiang. Chairman Su, why did you go to Nanjiang? Why didn't you tell me about this in advance? I have to do my part as a host. Jin Kwang's brain was spinning rapidly. Have you stayed? How about this? I will immediately call my people to pick you up. I will arrange everything else. I will rush back tonight. Su Yun was really not used to this explosion of enthusiasm. Director Jin, please don't trouble yourself. I have already stayed. I just want to ask you about someone. Tell me, as long as it's someone in Nanjiang, I am confident that I can find him. Jin Kwang was full of confidence. His connections in Nanjiang were definitely top-notch. He wasn't bragging. As long as it was someone with a reputation in Nanjiang, he knew them clearly. The person that Chairman Su wanted to find must be someone of status. He was sure of this. It's not that hard to find. You definitely know this person. It's the coal boss of Ruan Chao that I asked you to find some time ago. Su Yun said, I want to ask him about something. Jin Kwang said, oh, in his heart, but his mouth didn't stop. That's easy. I called him today. He is out of town and not in Nanjiang now. After pausing for a while, Jin Kwang continued, Chairman Su, how about this? I will contact him now and ask him to rush back immediately. He will meet you immediately when he reaches Nanjiang. I will rush back immediately too. Su Yun frowned. He felt that Jin Kwang wasn't telling the truth. But now that he had a favor to ask of him, Su Yun still smiled. There's no rush. I will have to trouble Director Jin with this matter. I'm sincere in becoming friends with Chairman Su. Ha ha ha, rest assured, Chairman Su. Jin Kwang valued Su Yun too much. Su Yun was someone that he needed to achieve glory. After hanging up the phone, Ruan Qingshuang asked curiously, how was it? Jin Kwang didn't tell me directly. It seems that he wants to arrange a meeting personally to do me a favor. Su Yun. These old foxes have been in society for many years. Each one of them is more shrewd than the other. They have a lot of wicked ideas in their hearts. Since that's the case, we can only wait for a while. Okay. Ruan Qingshuang nodded. She really didn't mind waiting for another day or two. To her, she was very close to the truth. This was a great achievement. I have prepared the hot water for you. Go and soak in it. Su Yun unexpectedly said, "Do you want to do it together?" Together? Ruan Qingxuang's cheeks instantly turned red. That bright red spread to her ears and neck. After last night, the relationship between the two of them had undergone a qualitative change. Neither of them could deny this. But Su Yun was too shameless. How could he have the nerve to say that? But Ruan Qingxuang shockingly realized that she actually admitted it shamelessly. God, it was too scary. Men and women who fell in love could really accept any kind of request. Jin Kuang was not idle either. He was not in the mood to flirt with his goddaughter. He immediately called He Dongfeng. He Dongfeng was the boss who recruited Ruan Chao to work in the coal mine. He and Jin Kuang could be considered friends in the jade and antique field. Although the two of them were not life-and-death friends, they were definitely familiar enough. Dongfeng, do you still remember the person I told you about before? The one who asked about your mine. Jin Kuang heard the call connect and went straight to the point. He Dongfeng looked. It was already 11 o'clock. Jin Kuang called just for this? That was too much of a scam. I remember. Didn't I tell you? That guy took the money to cover for me and ran away. I don't know where he is. You told me the truth, right? Jin Kuang said, let me tell you. That person is the new president of the Three Lotus Society. He is now in Nanjiang and called me to ask about you. Chapter 908. Of course not. Jin Kuang said, it's the middle of the night, and I don't know what's going on. I heard that you're out of town and can only go back to see him tomorrow. I'll rush back to Nanjiang tomorrow and go see him with you in the afternoon. He Dongfeng was startled. Brother Jin, why are you so concerned about that guy's matter? Why should I see him? I have nothing to say, and I don't owe him anything. I don't plan to go to Taiwan to do any business. I won't see him. You can find a reason to reject me. I don't need to. I've said everything I can. Dongfeng, you can't hide your intentions from me. Jin Kuang said, let me ask you. What else are you hiding from me? Otherwise, why would he go all the way to Nanjiang to talk to you? If you can't even trust me, then no one can trust you. Is there anything I don't know? Nothing. He Dongfeng said firmly, what can I not tell you? Brother Jin, we've known each other for a long time. Don't you trust me on this? I really have nothing to say. It's been so many years. I'm really afraid that he's investigating the mine accident again. To be honest, I'm a little nervous. Jin Kuang heaved a sigh of relief. Don't worry. They definitely don't have the time to investigate the cause of your mine accident. This matter has long been forgotten. Just listen to me and wait for me at home. I'll contact you as soon as I reach Nanjiang. Let's meet and treat it as making friends. Give me some face. Maybe he's just asking about Ruan Chao's situation at the mine. Pick something nice to say that won't offend him. Let's have a meal together, and this matter will be over. If you keep dragging it out, don't talk about others, even I will think that there's something wrong with you. What can happen to me? Really? He Dongfeng shook his head helplessly. Okay. We'll contact each other again when you reach Nanjiang tomorrow. Brother Jin, you know my character. I know. Just sleep well. See you tomorrow afternoon. Jin Kuang hung up the phone and fiercely slapped his goddaughter's butt, waking her up. Get dressed and get up. Follow me back to Nanjiang. What's the matter? It's so late at night. Can't you leave tomorrow morning? Jin Kuang glared at him. Something important. Humph. The girl could only reluctantly pick up her underwear. She cursed in her heart that this damn fatty only knew how to take care of himself. When they were doing it just now, she was almost out of breath. Now, he didn't allow her to rest and urged her to hurry up. Wasn't it just so that he could grope her to satisfy his desire on the way? Didn't he think about how tired she was just now? However, for the sake of that huge living expenses, she had no choice but to obey Jin Kuang's orders. Who asked her to be his woman? Sigh, thinking about this year, she had suffered a lot for material things. When Jean Kwong said one, she didn't dare to say two. When Jean Kwong said to go to the east, she didn't dare to go to the west. When Jean Kwong said to eat with her mouth, she didn't dare to use her hands. This kind of life, she was asking for it. Jean Kwong had been a shrewd person all his life. There were some things that he could see very clearly. He did not believe He Dongfeng's words, so he had to rush back as soon as possible. If He Dongfeng hid the whole thing for him, then he would not be able to explain it to Su Yun. Therefore, he told He Dongfeng that he would rush to Nanjiang tomorrow and would only arrive in the afternoon. However, he left overnight and strived to reach He Dongfeng's doorstep tomorrow morning. This way, even if He Dongfeng wanted to quit, he wouldn't be able to. This matter had to be done this way. After Jean Kwong thought it through, he called the driver and quickly put on his clothes. Because he was too fat, he was very clumsy when he put on his clothes. He could only let his goddaughter beside him put on her clothes and reach out to help him. It was really not good to be fat. Jean Kwong could not even see his toes when he lowered his head, so he felt that it was difficult to put on his pants, let alone shoes. He could only trouble the girl beside him who had slept with him for a year and was almost tired of sleeping with him. Jean Kwong wondered if he should go to the university to look for a different taste after this matter was over. Jean Kwong did not feel that he was a bad person for these girls who were old enough to be his daughters. Instead, he felt that he had let them down. If it were not for his generosity, how could these girls be able to carry bags that cost tens of thousands of yuan? How could they be able to drive luxury cars that cost 500,000 or 600,000 yuan? All of this was thanks to him. He had worked hard to think of ways to earn money, so that he could always have spare money to help these girls who could even abandon their self-love for vanity. When Jean Kwong walked out of the hotel with his goddaughter in his arms, the driver was already waiting for him at the door. There were thousands of bosses like him in the world. The number of goddaughters who had destroyed their life values because of their selfish desires was 100 times more than the number of people in their group. He Dongfeng in Nanjiang did not sleep well the entire night. After hanging up the phone with Jean Kwong, he stood on the balcony and smoked. His wife was still sleeping soundly on the bed. She had no idea what was going on in her man's mind. The past events from many years ago once again appeared in He Dongfeng's life. This made He Dongfeng quite distressed. His concept of life was to live one day at a time. He absolutely could not regret the past. This was why he had achieved what he had today. But he really regretted this matter. If it were not for the fact that he wanted to get back the 100,000 yuan, there would not be today's trouble with the Three Lotus Society's president. He was very clear about what he had done. These things had been rotting in his stomach, so much so that he even believed that he had not done those things. But the truth was the truth. It could never be changed because of the passage of time. No. He Dongfeng thought to himself. He absolutely could not go back on this matter. Even if Jean Kwong wanted him to give this face, he could not do it. He had to think of a reason. Tomorrow morning, he would take his wife and children and leave Nanjiang to avoid the limelight. But where to go? He Dongfeng put out the cigarette in his hand and thought to himself, I got it. Didn't his wife always want to go abroad? Then he would give her a chance. Although his wife was already an old woman, she had given her all for this family for so many years. It was time for him to repay her. He would settle this matter tomorrow. He would find a travel company that he was familiar with and had connections to get a work visa for his family. The kind that was for more than half a year. This way, he could go out for a while. He believed that the young president of the Three Lotus Society did not have the time to wait for him for half a year. Brother Jean, I'm sorry. You'll have to think of another way. Before I board the plane tomorrow, I'll tell you again. My wife is seriously ill and can only be treated abroad. I hope you can understand my difficulties. After making up his mind, He Dongfeng went to wash his face with cold water and crawled back into bed to sleep. He Dongfeng, had encountered everything in half his life. This was nothing. 5 words floated across the sky. This was nothing. But he still could not sleep. On the same night, different people were doing different things. Some were in bed, some were in a hurry on the highway, and some were unable to sleep. But on this summer night, most people were waiting in front of the television, preparing beer and side dishes, waiting for the results of the World Cup game after game. Chapter 909. He Dongfeng did not expect that when he woke up early in the morning and was preparing to go out to arrange for his family's overseas trip, Jin Kwang's luxury car, which was rare even among Nanjiang's coal bosses, had already stopped in front of his villa. This really caught He Dongfeng off guard. For a moment, He Dongfeng did not know what to do next. A minute ago, he was still enthusiastically telling his wife about going overseas for a trip. Now, he was afraid that this matter could not be done. Sigh, if he had known earlier, he would not have said it so early. In life, the higher the hope, the greater the disappointment. Many things were like this. Jin Kwang's driver rushed the whole night before he had the chance to block He Dongfeng at the door. One had to know that he had stopped the car less than a minute ago. If he had come a little later and could not block He Dongfeng, he would probably have been scolded by his boss for no reason. Although he had already exceeded the speed limit by more than 50% on the highway where there were no cameras. After all, the car was good. It was very easy to reach 250 to 60 kilometers per hour. Jin Kwang was just about to get out of the car when he saw He Dongfeng leaving. He smiled in his heart. Obviously, this he guy had some thoughts. Otherwise, for a guy like him who usually woke up at 8:30 a.m., he should still be snoring loudly at 7:30 a.m. Why would he appear in front of him? But this was also good. It saved him the trouble of visiting. What are you going to do so early in the morning? After Jin Kwang got out of the car, he did not expose He Dongfeng's thoughts. He narrowed his eyes and said with a smile, "Are you going to exercise your body? Ha ha, good news. Good news. Our bodies should really exercise now. Otherwise, I'm really afraid that we won't be able to get up if we get sick." He Dongfeng knew that Jin Kwang was giving him a way out, so he could only smile and reply, "Yes, I'm going to go out for a run and buy some breakfast." Ha ha, exercise, exercise. Everyone says that life lies in exercise. I should exercise. These years, my body is really not good. I'm old, ha ha ha. Everyone could hear that He Dongfeng's laughter was very forced. Life lies in exercise? People who really thought so would have gotten up at 5 a.m. and run around Nanjiang's Mount Hulong, right? How could they go out to exercise at this time? However, if no one exposed this blatant lie, Jin Kwang wouldn't disrespect his friend like this. I've been sitting in the car all night. It's time for me to get some exercise. Let's go and run 2 laps together to exercise our bodies. For Jin Kwang to say such a thing, it was simply inconceivable. Of course, he was very clear about his own useless body. Last night, he was lying on top of his goddaughter, and before he could even move twice, he was already out of breath. His waist felt like it was broken, and he couldn't support his body. With a bang, he pressed down on his goddaughter, almost causing her to suffocate. This made him realize a very serious problem. He was afraid that right now, he could only enjoy the blissful life of lying between a woman's legs. The two of them, who only had money, status, and women in their lives, did not have the word exercise at all. Now that they suddenly started running, they quickly felt that their stamina was running out. After running 8 or 9 steps, Jin Kwang's breathing became obviously heavier. The excess fat on his body made him feel very tormented. "Dongfeng, about what I told you last night, don't tell me you don't want to give me face?" "Of course not. I will definitely give face to brother Jin. Not to mention that you want me to meet someone, even if you want me to climb a mountain of swords or plunge into a sea of fire, I will not hesitate." He Dongfeng's answer was very straightforward. His stamina was not much better than Jin Kwang's. Although he did not look as fat as Jin Kwang, after a dozen steps, his legs were as heavy as sand. After running a few more steps, Jin Kwang was already out of breath. He knew that his body lacked exercise, but he did not expect it to be so lacking. He had only run a dozen steps. He had not even run 10 meters, and he already felt that he could not hold on. Sigh, his skin was really hopeless. I can't run anymore. Jean Kwong stopped. To a certain extent, he had also saved He Dongfeng. He Dongfeng could not run anymore. Let's find a place to have breakfast. Let's go, get in my car. Let's talk while we eat. He Dongfeng knew that he could not refuse. After all, if it were not for Jean Kwong's operation, his business would not have lasted until now. Since Jean Kwong had said so, he could not refuse. He could only agree. Then, he called his wife and said that he had an urgent matter. He would talk about what he had said in the morning later. He was afraid that he would not have time to go home today. Although He Dongfeng's wife was helpless, she knew her husband's difficulties. Other than understanding, what else could she do? The girl in the car looked at Fatty Jean, who could not be dragged after running a dozen steps. She actually had a feeling that she had never had before in her heart. Why did she have to lie under such a man for material things? With her looks and figure, she could make the group of handsome boys on the school basketball team go crazy for her. At her age, what kind of sunny boyfriend could she not find? Why did she have to ruin herself like this? However, this thought only flashed through her mind. She quickly realized that the group of silly boys on the school basketball team could not afford to buy her a bag that cost 30,000 yuan, let alone a BMW sports car. Life, what was wrong with being more realistic? At least she still had the capital now. When she was old, no one would give her such a life even if she wanted to. Jean Kwong brought He Dongfeng to the front of the car. He let his goddaughter get out of the car and sit in the front passenger seat. He wanted to talk to He Dongfeng in the back seat. Of course, they were not talking about meeting Su Yun. They were talking about this year's coal market. This year, China's coal prices had been lowered again and again. The workers were no longer hiding their opinions. Some people were even alarmist, saying that the company was going to close down and that it was no longer working. Speaking of these things, the two guys who could be considered influential people in Nanjiang were also a little depressed. Soon, the driver brought them to the most high-end breakfast shop in Nanjiang. Perhaps the things here were too expensive for the working class to afford, or perhaps it was past the peak time for breakfast, so there were not many people in the shop. The few of them casually ordered some food. Jean Kwong asked the driver to send his goddaughter, who had eaten, back to her university. Then, he began to talk about Su Yun. Dongfeng, I understand you. You don't like to talk about those old and rotten things. But we can't afford to offend Su Yun. Jean Kwong said, don't look at his young age. He's more capable than us. Let me tell you this. You know what kind of position the Sanlian Society has in Taiwan, right? He's the president. Although He Dongfeng did not refute Jean Kwong's words, he still said what was in his heart. I'm not going to Taiwan. I'm in the mainland. The mainland? You know the famous Black Widow Yi Fala of Xinjiang, right? You've stayed in Xinkai Hotel before, right? That's also his. Jean Kwong said slightly exaggeratedly, I didn't know about these things before. If I wasn't lucky enough to meet him on the plane, I wouldn't dare to believe it. Have you seen the newspapers these few days? Sky Entertainment Group. That's the leader of our Hua Xiao's film and entertainment industry. What kind of woman is the white-lipped, bamboo-leaved, and awe-inspiring woman? To us, she's too high to reach. But to him, she's just one of the women by his side. Chapter 9-10. It took He Dongfeng a while to recover from his shock. Brother Jean, I know you won't make such a boring joke with me. But I don't understand. Such a capable young man, why would he want to find a village boy who had worked in my small mine before? This doesn't make sense. Jean Kwong was also surprised by this. Yes, it didn't make sense. He also felt that it didn't make sense. However, there were too many unreasonable and inexplicable things in the world. It wasn't like this was the only one. There was nothing to be surprised about, right? He was looking for this person, and there was no reason to explain the reason to him. How could Jean Kwong ask why? I know this doesn't make sense, but this is the truth. Maybe that Ruan kid offended him back then. He has made a name for himself, so he wants to show off in front of him? Of course, Jin Kwang was talking nonsense. If a person had this kind of mentality, they would definitely not be able to reach Su Yun's current height. Jin Kwang had interacted with many people in his life. None of those who had achieved great things were narrow-minded. Brother Jin, I'm afraid you can't believe your own words, right? He Dongfeng drank the sea cucumber porridge in front of him and shook his head helplessly at Jin Kwang. I just don't know. How can I not panic when such a capable person is looking for me? Jin Kwang knew that this guy must have something on his mind. He was not a rash kid who had just entered society. What kind of people had he not seen before? What kind of world had he not seen before? How could he be nervous? However, Jin Kwang did not expose him. What are you nervous about? It might be a good thing to get to know each other and make friends. Don't think too much. Everyone is together to make friends. I don't believe that you, He Dongfeng, are such a dog meat can't be put on the table person. The you I know is not such a person. He Dongfeng could only accept Jin Kwang's flattery with a bitter smile. Only he himself knew what was on his mind. Sigh, this matter could not be avoided. He could only brace himself and solve it. If it was really not a big deal and just to make friends, he Dongfeng, would be lucky. If this matter was a disaster, he would not be able to drag his family to avoid it. After the driver sent Jin Kwang's goddaughter back to school, he immediately returned. When the girl got off the bus and entered the school, she was definitely the center of attention. College students had become more holistic, so it was not difficult for people to figure out her current occupation. After that, many envious gazes began to turn into mockery. Now that such a scene was happening at the entrance of a university, everyone was no longer surprised. Soon, everything returned to normal. The campus was still the same. It had a different atmosphere and environment from society. After the driver returned to the breakfast shop, Jin Kwang invited He Dongfeng to go to the company with him. He would not let He Dongfeng go at this juncture. After getting into the car, Jin Kwang called Su Yun in front of He Dongfeng with a smile and told Su Yun that he was already with He Dongfeng. Moreover, he had arranged a meal at the largest seafood restaurant in Nanjing at noon and asked Su Yun to attend. Su Yun was very surprised by Jin Kwang's efficiency. This guy's ability and scheming were definitely different from ordinary people. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to handle things so quickly. Of course, he would definitely attend the appointment. Their purpose for coming to Nanjing was for this matter. Once time fell into waiting, it passed particularly slowly. After Ruan Qingshuang knew that she could meet the private mine boss where her brother used to work, she began to become anxious. If it were not for Su Yun's occasional persuasion, she really did not know how to endure the few hours of waiting. Finally, it was noon. After Su Yun and Ruan Qingshuang arrived at the location for the appointment, Jin Kwang and He Dongfeng were already waiting at the door. Jin Kwang greeted them warmly, made a simple introduction, and brought them to the room. Jin Kwang knew that there were some things that he could not let outsiders participate in. Otherwise, he could casually call over a dozen city leaders to accompany him. Today, there were only the four of them here: Su Yun, Ruan Qingshuang, Jin Kwang, and He Dongfeng. There was not a single outsider. A luxurious room, a large table for 18 people. With just the four of them sitting, it really seemed a little cold and cheerless. However, when the dishes were served, the table did not seem so cold and cheerless. A king crab that was half a meter wide took up a considerable amount of space. This was the signature dish of this hotel, so naturally, they had to order it. Jin Kwang personally poured wine for them while introducing the specialties here. Obviously, he was a regular here. However, he had never poured wine for others while eating here. He Dongfeng would not let Jin Kwang pour wine for him. After Jin Kwang poured wine for Su Yun and Ruan Qingshuang, he snatched the wine bottle and filled Jin Kwang's glass, then filled it for himself. Of course, Ruan Qingshuang did not know how to drink, but she did not refuse Jin Kwang's wine because her mind was not on eating and drinking at all. Even if the king crab was so big, she was not in the mood to look at it. She only wanted to know the truth. Su Yun would not let Ruan Qingxuang wait any longer. He suddenly opened his mouth without any warning and went straight to the point. He did not give He Dongfeng any face at all. Boss I already know about what happened back then. I also know very well about your shady dealings with the casino owner. I just want to know one thing now. These words made He Dongfeng terrified. He did not expect the other party to be so direct. He was so young, but his aura had completely suppressed him. He even felt that his breathing was becoming rapid and difficult. Jin Kuang did not expect Su Yun's opening statement to be so direct. He could not smooth things over. It seemed that he could not get a word in edgewise. He could only see how He Dongfeng resolved it. After Ruan Chao was injured outside the casino, did you find someone to take him away? Su Yun's words were sonorous and forceful. There was no room for doubt. He Dongfeng's head buzzed. He was afraid that the other party would mention this matter to him. No, really not. I really didn't participate in those things at all. I didn't ask Old White Dog to hit people. I just asked him to get the money back. Chairman Su, I swear to the heavens that I'm not lying. If I lie to you, I'll be struck by lightning. Since Su Yun had already been regarded as a god by Jin Kuang, He Dongfeng felt inferior when he did not see him. When he saw him, he was suppressed by his aura to the point that he could not lift his head. That was why he said such slightly inferior words. This did not match his identity, but it matched the current situation. Then who took my brother away? When Ruan Qingxuang said this, Jin Kuang and He Dongfeng suddenly realized. No wonder Su Yun insisted on looking for Ruan Chao. Ruan Chao might be his brother-in-law. Sigh, He Dongfeng's heart was cold. If he had known earlier, he would not have done it in the first place. However, he really did not lie. He really did not know who took Ruan Chao away. After Ruan Chao disappeared, he had inquired about whether he was dead or alive, but there was no news at all. I really don't know, He Dongfeng begged. I know. I shouldn't have let him take the blame, and I shouldn't have colluded with Old White Dog to cheat them of their money at the casino. I have repented for all these things, but I really didn't hurt anyone. I didn't lie. I really didn't lie. He Dongfeng's eyes revealed panic and helplessness. Su Yun believed that such a gaze would not lie. It seemed that they had still failed. The last clue had suddenly been cut off in front of them. Ruan Qingxuang's disappointment quickly appeared on her face, but she did not want Su Yun to worry, so she quickly retracted it. Chapter 9-11. This made Jin Kuang quite nervous. Originally, he thought that after dealing with the matter that Su Yun needed his help, Su Yun would definitely owe him a big favor. This way, he could invite Su Yun out alone at night to eat and drink and then talk about the matter of him wanting to open a mine in Taiwan. But now, he did not dare to mention it. Su Yun was probably not in the mood to talk to him about this matter. Jin Kuang did not expect the person that Su Yun was looking for to have such a relationship. This made him feel very vexed. It was as if He Dongfeng had ruined this matter. Sigh, fate made fools of people. Since this matter was not easy to talk about after it was over, Jin Kuang could only wait for an opportunity to give Su Yun enough help. Although everything that Jin Kuang did now was help and a favor to Su Yun, these small things added together could not compare to everything that Su Yun did on the plane. Jin Kuang's calculation of the ways of the world was much better than his mathematics. He was able to become the CEO of Hong Tai. This was enough to prove his ability in interpersonal relationships. No matter when, whether a person could handle interpersonal relationships well could affect a person's social status. For example, take Liu Bei during the Three Kingdoms. His identity as Emperor Lu's uncle was not recognized by many. But you had to admit that he relied on his ability to handle interpersonal relationships. Not only did he become sworn brothers with Guan Yu and Zhang Fei, but he also invited Zhuge Kongming out of Crouching Dragon Mountain. This was called ability. Jin Kuang did not have much education since he was young. He did not even graduate from primary school and could only recognize a few big words. So, he did not read many books. However, he had watched the TV series Romance of the Three Kingdoms. After watching the Three Kingdoms, some people admired Guan Yu's loyalty and bravery. They admired Cao Cao's peerless valiance and wisdom. They admired Zhuge Liang's resourcefulness and even admired Sima Zhao's shrewdness. But there were not many who admired Liu Bei. But Jin Kuang admired Liu Bei. He felt that Liu Bei was the person who knew how to handle interpersonal relationships the best in the Three Kingdoms. Everyone's understanding of books was different. Jin Kuang understood Liu Bei that way in his eyes. Chairman Su, I don't dare to talk about things in other places. But in Nanjiang, if you need any help, just ask. Don't stand on ceremony, make yourself at home. Jin Kuang ended the lunch with these words. He could see that Su Yun and Ruan Qingxuang were not in the mood to eat. Su Yun smiled. Chief Jin, with your words, I'm really relieved. Chairman Su, where are you staying now? Jin Kuang struck while the iron was hot. Why don't I make the arrangements so that I can fulfill my duties as a host? No need. Su Yun shook his head. We came to Nanjiang to inquire about these things. Since there are no results, I don't plan to stay any longer. Thank you for your kindness, President Jin. Jin Kuang was a little disappointed, but he wouldn't force him to stay. Don't be so polite. Isn't this what I should do as a big brother? I don't feel good about not being able to help you, Sai. Ruan Qingxuang was moved by Jin Kuang's emotional card. She said embarrassedly, This matter has already troubled you, Chief Jin. We are already very sorry for making you rush back overnight. Su Yun didn't plan to be polite anymore. He suggested leaving. After Jin Kuang and He Dongfeng watched the car leave, they relaxed and lit a cigarette. This Chairman Su is much younger than I thought. He Dongfeng took a puff of his cigarette. Jin Kuang turned to look at him. Dongfeng, you really didn't hide anything from me, right? Brother, you must establish a mutually beneficial relationship with Su Yun. You can't hide this matter from me. It's really too important to me and to Hong Tai Group. After a pause, Jin Kuang said, Your mine has been standing for so many years. The scale of your business is getting bigger and bigger. That's all because of Hong Tai's support. Brother Jin, look at what you're saying. Even if I'm playing games with someone, I won't play games with you. He Dongfeng hurriedly explained, I've already told you everything I know. If there's anything I'm hiding, I'll be struck by lightning and struck by lightning. Jin Kuang waved his hand. He didn't believe in things like swearing. Feudal superstitions had been eradicated for so many years. Who would still care about these things? You brat, humph. You'd better figure out who you're relying on. If I hadn't arrived in time this morning, do you really think I'd believe you were going for morning exercise? Wearing formal leather shoes for morning exercise? Do you know what you're doing? Burning toilet paper in your grave, trying to fool a ghost. Brother Jin. He Dongfeng was exposed. He knew it was useless to explain. I'm a little muddle-headed, but I promise, just this once. There won't be a second time. If your ideological awareness is really that high, then put some effort into this matter. It would be even better if you could find news of Ruan Chao. Jin Kuang narrowed his eyes. I'm not joking with you. What I said is true. He Dongfeng smiled bitterly in his heart. Where was he going to find him? This person had been missing for several years. Perhaps he was already dead. He wasn't a police officer. Where was he going to find him? However, he didn't say that out loud. He nodded repeatedly and said, Yes. Brother Jin is right. I'll definitely use my connections to find clues. Once there's any news, I'll tell you immediately. That's right. For the sake of everyone's interests and future. Of course, Jin Kuang wouldn't tell him that he wanted to go to Taiwan to open a mine. Before he had full confidence in the matter, he wouldn't talk nonsense. He wasn't one of those hot-blooded youths who were full of idealism. He wouldn't be able to boast about the people around him before he could do anything. He Dongfeng bid farewell to Jin Kuang and returned home. His wife and children weren't in the mood. When they saw that he Dongfeng had returned home, they questioned him, "Next time if you're not sure, don't say it. I've even prepared my luggage, and you said that you can't go because you have something to do." He Dongfeng, what do you mean? Faced with his wife's questioning, he Dongfeng wasn't angry. Instead, he sat on the sofa with ease. "If you really want to go, then let's go. If Jin Kuang hadn't blocked our door early in the morning, we would have already boarded the plane. Alright, stop complaining. Continue to pack your luggage. I'll do this in the afternoon. Let's go out and relax as a family of 3. Hearing that they could travel abroad again, he Dongfeng's wife's mood brightened. She excitedly went with the child to pack the things that had been packed out of the suitcase again. He Dongfeng really needed to go out and relax now. He wanted to go back to his past. He didn't want to be uneasy because of those things in the past. In the afternoon, he hurriedly went to the mine to give a few instructions. Then, he found an old acquaintance of the travel company and went on a 10-day tour to the 6 countries of Europe. He wanted to relax. At this time, Su Yun and Ruan Qingshuang were also preparing to pack their things and leave. Although Jin Kuang didn't ask where they were staying, he arranged for someone to follow them. He personally went to buy some valuable specialties of Nanjiang. He didn't succeed, but he couldn't be short of gifts. Jin Kuang had always done things openly and carefully. After he bought the things, he rushed to the Confucian Hotel where Su Yun and Ruan Qingshuang were staying. He waited in the hotel lobby for Su Yun and the others to check out and leave. However, many things would always change in an instant, just an instant. Chapter 9:12. He Dongfeng searched every room in the house, but he couldn't find his wife and child. Just as he was about to explode in panic, he saw a letter nailed to the wall by a fruit knife. He Dongfeng was tortured by his ringing ears and had a splitting headache. His hands trembled as he took down the letter. The content was very simple. Your wife and child are in my hands. If you want them to live, then take care of your own hands. If you dare to call the police, I dare to kill them. I've already died once, so there's nothing to be afraid of in this world. Back then, you colluded with the old white dog in the casino to cheat us. It's time for me to settle the score for you. We've just started. There's no rush. Let's play slowly. Wait for my news. Signed, Ruan Chao. Boom. He Dongfeng felt his blood pressure instantly rise to more than 200. How could this matter from a few years ago not be forgotten? Ruan Chao. In He Dongfeng's eyes, this name was no different from a ghost. However, He Dongfeng was He Dongfeng after all. He had experienced the world, so he quickly calmed himself down. What kind of evil had he done to deserve such revenge? He Dongfeng's left hand trembled as he held the letter. He took out his phone with his right hand and dialed 1 with his trembling hand. Then, he pressed 1 again. When his finger moved to 0, He Dongfeng stopped trembling, but he couldn't press it no matter what. He was a sensible person. He knew that the first thing to do was to call the police, but he was also too afraid. What if the other party really killed the hostage? Wouldn't that be the end? He dared to risk himself, but he didn't dare to risk his child. This was his family's only child, his lifeline. He Dongfeng, who was flustered, didn't dare to call the police in the end. Perhaps it was this sudden change that disturbed his train of thought. When he calmed down, he slapped his head hard. Then he gave himself 2 tight slaps. How could he forget such an important matter in such a short period of time? Wasn't Su Yun asking Jin Kuang to find news of Ruan Chao for him? Wasn't this the news of Ruan Chao? After grabbing onto a life-saving straw, He Dongfeng took a deep breath. That's right, Su Yun would definitely solve this problem for him. He opened the wine cabinet and took out a bottle of white wine. He took a big gulp, and the spicy taste in his throat cleared his mind. He quickly dialed Jin Kuang's number. After receiving He Dongfeng's message, Jean Kwong was stunned for a while before regaining his senses. This was a big deal. Jean Kwong could not wait any longer. He immediately described Su Yun and Ruan Qingxuang's appearance to the young lady at the service desk. After confirming Su Yun's room, he rushed over. Just as he reached the door of the room, Su Yun and Ruan Qingxuang opened the door and prepared to leave Nanjiang. After seeing Jean Kwong, Su Yun was quite surprised. He thought to himself, why did this guy come here? Chairman Su, Miss Ruan, there's news about Ruan Chao. Although Jean Kwong took the elevator up, he was still panting. After hearing Jean Kwong's description, the thing in Ruan Qingxuang's hand fell to the ground. Everything happened too suddenly. There was no time for her to digest it. The panic made Ruan Qingxuang lose her ability to think. She looked as if she had lost her soul and stared blankly at Su Yun. Let's go. Let's go to He Dongfeng's house first. Su Yun quickly made a decision. He Dongfeng's house was still in a mess. There was not much left of the bottle of white wine on the coffee table. When Su Yun and the rest arrived, He Dongfeng stood up with a red face and knelt in front of Su Yun and Ruan Qingxuang. He no longer cared about the saying that men had gold under their knees. Chairman Su, you must help me. Save my wife and child. He Dongfeng did not hide his annoyance and regret at all. He was almost crying as he begged, my He family only has one son. If anything happens to him, I really have no words to face my ancestors. Get up and talk. Su Yun maintained his calm. Don't worry. Things won't be that bad. I believe that Ruan Chao won't do something so extreme. Tell me, what did you find? He Dongfeng stood up in a panic and handed the letter to Su Yun. It's this. Only this. I don't know anything else. Su Yun took the letter and handed it to Ruan Qingxuang. Ruan Qingxuang took it with trembling hands. After reading the content, she said to Su Yun with certainty, this is Ruan Chao's handwriting. It must be, it can't be wrong. He has liked to stretch the word Chao since he was young. Because of this, I have often told him off. It must be, it must be. That's right. Ruan Qingxuang was a little excited, and even a little happy. At least she was now sure that her brother was not dead. This was such important news to her. Although it was not appropriate to be happy at this time, Ruan Qingxuang really could not hide her heart. Other than this, is there nothing else? Su Yun frowned. He Dongfeng shook his head. No, there was nothing. There was only this note. It seems that we can only wait. Jean Kwong sighed. Only Ruan Chao contacted us. Otherwise, we wouldn't know where to find him. Su Yun did not say anything. After comforting Ruan Qingxuang to sit down, he walked out of the room. He wanted to see if there were any clues that could be found. Although Jean Kwong was right and waiting was the only way, he did not want to wait. Because every minute of waiting meant that He Dongfeng's wife and children would be in danger. If Ruan Chao's blood rushed to his head and did something irrational, that would be troublesome. Even if he was Ruan Qingxuang's younger brother, if he did something to harm the innocent, Su Yun would also hand him over to the relevant department to give him the punishment he deserved. He believed that Ruan Qingxuang would do the same. But they did not want such an outcome when they found him. Su Yun thought as he carefully investigated the clues left on the ground. Soon, he found a tire mark that was not obvious. He bent down to study it. Based on the width of the tire and the reaction of the grip when it started, it was very likely that it was a pickup truck. Of course, this was Su Yun's guess. It was a guess based on probability. The people who lived near He Dongfeng's villa were all rich people. Ordinary people could not afford such a villa. So, there should not be anyone who drove a pickup truck nearby, right? Even if there were, it would be very few. After confirming his guess, Su Yun asked Jean Kwong to use his connections to find someone to record the footage of the cameras at both ends of the road. Moreover, the kidnapping could not be spread. Su Yun was also worried that something would happen. He did not want Ruan Chao to hurt anyone. As long as Ruan Chao did not hurt anyone, the rest would be easy to solve. This matter was very easy for Jin Kwang. He left in a hurry after making a few phone calls. Of course, he had to be 120% careful about what Su Yun had asked him to do. It would definitely be done beautifully, and Su Yun would only be able to thank him. About an hour later, Jin Kwang obtained the surveillance footage for this period of time. After sending it to Su Yun could not wait to watch the surveillance footage. As expected, a pickup truck without a license plate entered and left the road during this period of time. Su Yun could basically conclude that this truck was Ruan Chao's tool to commit the crime. Chapter 913. The pickup truck's final destination was a canning factory in Nanjiang's old industrial zone. As people's living standards became higher and higher, they could eat whatever they wanted at any time. There were all kinds of out-of-season fruits. Canned food slowly faded out of people's sight. This kind of thing that was the first choice for patients 20 to 30 years ago was also replaced by all kinds of high-end gifts. Of course, it did not mean that there were no canned food now, but there were indeed fewer of them. People born in the 1980s definitely knew that canned food was something they dreamed of eating when they were young. Now, even if they saw it in the supermarket, they would sigh and wonder how much preservatives and additives were added to these fruits. Therefore, those who did not close down were all capable. Most of them were done for. Nanjiang's canning factory was an abandoned place 5 years ago. Other than the occasional activities of some young people who were involved in heavy metal rock music, there was basically no one here on normal days. No one would come to this declining place to look for memories. Moreover, this old industrial zone had already been planned by Nanjiang City as a future key planning and reconstruction project. Other than those who wanted to bid and inspect it, no one would come to this place that could be called desolate. If one wanted to kidnap and shelter a hostage, this place was really the best choice in Nanjiang. At least Su Yun felt that this place was too suitable, so he could basically conclude that Ruan Chao had already brought He Dongfeng's wife and children to this place. If nothing unexpected happened, Ruan Chao was now thinking about how to take revenge on He Dongfeng. It was reasonable for Ruan Chao to want to take revenge on He Dongfeng. He did not even dare to return home because he was He Dongfeng's scapegoat. Moreover, He Dongfeng had actually colluded with the local ruffian, Old White Dog, to set them up and cheat them of their money. In order to get back the money, Ruan Chao was almost hacked to death. With these things squeezed together, it was inevitable that Ruan Chao would want to take revenge on this black-hearted coal boss. After knowing that Su Yun was going to the canning factory in the old industrial zone to investigate, Jin Kwang rushed back to lead the way for Su Yun. He was very familiar with the old industrial zone and was definitely the best choice to be a guide. Although He Dongfeng suggested to go together, Su Yun rejected him. He felt that Ruan Chao would do such a crazy thing because he was extreme. If He Dongfeng appeared, he was worried that Ruan Chao would do something irrational. It would not be too late for them to settle this matter first. He Dongfeng could not dissuade him, so he could only stay at home and drink. Jin Kwang also understood him and promised him that he would definitely bring his wife and children back unharmed. Only then did He Dongfeng heave a sigh of relief in his heart. His trust in Jin Kwang far exceeded that of Su Yun and Ruan Qingshuang. By the time Su Yun and the others arrived at the abandoned factory in the old industrial zone, the sky was already dark. Jin Kwang was like a SWAT officer who was about to carry out a secret operation and was about to sneak in. Su Yun directly told him that there was no need. Once they found the pickup truck, the problem would be solved. He did not believe that Ruan Chao would still be so extreme and crazy after seeing his sister. It was indeed Ruan Chao who did it. Back then, he was not hacked to death by the Old White Dog's subordinates. His savior was like a gift from God. Not only did he save him, who was on the verge of death from excessive blood loss, but he also brought him a brand new world and life. However, after so many years, he still could not forget his black-hearted boss. Finally, he had the chance to complete his revenge plan in Nanjiang. It was because of this person that Ruan Chao did not even dare to return home. He had more than 30 scars of various sizes on his body. He did not know if his family would still recognize him when he returned home. Tears streaked across the shocking scar on Ruan Chao's face. He only hoped that his parents would pretend that they never had a son like him. He Dongfeng's wife and children were tied up opposite him. Their mouths were stuffed with a rag and they were sobbing. If it was the soft-hearted Yuan Chao a few years ago, he would not have done such a crazy thing even if he was beaten to death. However, he was no longer the him of the past. He wanted He Dongfeng to pay the price. He did not even think about how terrifying the hearts of the mother and son were. The sun was setting in the west and the sky was gradually darkening. Everything in the old industrial district seemed so quiet. However, the sound of a car engine tore through the silence before the night fell. The tears in Yuan Chao's eyes suddenly stopped. He carefully walked to the window on the second floor of the cannery. Through the broken glass, he saw someone parking a car beside his pickup truck. Yuan Chao's mind was spinning rapidly. In the face of an unexpected situation, he had to make emergency preparations. However, at this moment, a voice pierced his chest like a sharp sword. "Yuan Chao, it's me, sister." The young man who was wrapped in scars instantly burst into tears. Even if he was in hell, he could still recognize the voice of his sister, Yuan Qingshuang. No. Impossible. Yuan Chao quickly denied his thoughts. How could it be his sister? He must have been hallucinating because he missed his hometown. This was absolutely impossible. His sister was just an ordinary person who lived in a corner of a city and lived a difficult life. How could she take a luxury car to Nanjiang to find him who was committing a crime? Hee. Yuan Chao felt that he was about to go crazy. Indeed, the revenge mentality made his mind split. His heart was both kind and dark and frightening at the same time. "Yuan Chao, I know you're here. Don't continue. Stop. You're not that kind of person. You're my brother. I know you." Yuan Qingshuang's call came again. Yuan Chao was stunned. He was completely stunned. Could it be that this was not an illusion? Buzz. Yuan Chao's mind went blank. He did not have time to threaten the two struggling hostages. His mind was filled with his sister's figure. He did not remember how many years it had been since he last saw his sister. How could this not be an illusion? Could it be a dream? Yuan Chao's ears kept calling out, but his feet seemed to be frozen in cement. It was not until a few figures appeared in front of him that he came back to his senses. Less than 20 meters away from him, who else could it be but his sister Yuan Qingshuang? Yuan Qingshuang's tears were completely uncontrollable. Even though Yuan Chao's face was completely disfigured by the shocking scar, she could still recognize him at a glance. This was her brother, the brother who had always respected and loved her. When she escaped from her hometown, Yuan Chao had always supported her spiritually. Yuan Chao knew that his sister did not want to marry that lazy guy from the Liu family. Everything seemed to be frozen. Yuan Chao once again used his rough hands to rub his face. The person in front of him did not disappear. All of this was real. "It's me." Yuan Qingshuang was already sobbing. She could not believe how much her brother had suffered. Yuan Chao's lower lip trembled slightly as he called out, "Sister." Su Yun and Jin Kuang finally heaved a sigh of relief because they saw that He Dongfeng's wife and children were only tied to the load-bearing pillar and were not hurt. This was good. Yuan Chao had not made an irreparable mistake. Su Yun did not want to disturb the siblings' reunion, so he quietly walked over to rescue the hostages. At this moment, Yuan Chao was like a hungry wolf whose tail had been stepped on. He suddenly charged at Su Yun and kicked out with lightning speed. Su Yun did not expect this kid to make a move, and he did not expect Yuan Qingshuang's brother to be so swift and violent. When he realized it, he was completely unable to block in his current situation. He was actually sent flying several meters by Yuan Chao's kick to the chest. Chapter 9:14. Su Yun was sent flying with a kick. Beads of sweat appeared on Jin Kuang's forehead. "Oh my God, is this okay? If I get kicked like that, I probably won't even be able to stand up, right?" This wasn't the time for Jin Kuang to show off. He would rather stand there obediently than rush forward to help. He believed that Su Yun would definitely understand him. Yuan Chao didn't have any intention of stopping. He followed closely and pushed forward, forcing Su Yun into a dead end. Su Yun endured the tightness in his chest and cursed in his heart. Bastard, if I had half of the internal energy I had before, I would have beaten you to the ground. But now, he didn't even have the strength to resist. To be honest, he was like a tiger that had fallen from grace. Seeing that Yuan Chao's hammer-sized fist was about to greet his body, Su Yun could only raise his hand to block. With Su Yun's current physical condition, it was still very easy for him to deal with hooligans. But when it came to dealing with experts, it was obvious that there was no way he could do anything. Stop! Yuan Qingxuang angrily rebuked and strode forward. Logically speaking, she had finally found her long-lost brother. The scene of the siblings hugging each other and crying bitterly should have been the scene of her crying. But what Yuan Chao did to Su Yun made Yuan Qingxuang very angry. After all, she was the elder sister. Although she loved her only brother since he was young, she was also quite strict with him. Often, when Yuan Chao did something wrong, he would rather let his parents know than let his sister know. Yuan Qingxuang's strictness towards him was far more than his parents' strictness towards him. But Yuan Chao knew in his heart that this was because his sister loved him. Otherwise, she would be too lazy to care about him. In this world, perhaps only Yuan Qingxuang could speak out to stop Yuan Chao. Yuan Chao's fist was like a fully drawn bow. Slowly, bit by bit, it softened. But Yuan Qingxuang's footsteps didn't slow down at all. She slapped Yuan Chao's still raised fist fiercely. Her heart was filled with anger and heartache. Yuan Chao turned his head, as if he didn't want his sister to see his face. Sister, why are you here? If I didn't appear here, you'd have made a big mistake. Do you know what you're doing? Kidnapping. This is a crime. Yuan Qingxuang's body trembled. For so many years, I thought that I was dreaming to see you again. Yuan Chao, to see you. Yuan Chao, do you know how much I used to hope that you were still alive? But when I saw you, I really hoped that you were dead. Since you're alive, why didn't you? Don't you know that your parents and I were worried? Yuan Chao. Of Yuan of Qingxuang scolding. To Ruan's, to be to his twos. How could he not feel ashamed of what he had done? He didn't fulfill his duty as a son. He didn't fulfill his duty as a younger brother. I'm already like this. I don't want you to worry. Yuan Chao knew that his reason was far-fetched, but it was indeed his reason. No matter what, you're still a member of the Yuan family. You're also my parents' son. You're also my younger brother. Yuan Qingxuang's heart was in pain that others could not understand. Su Yun was glad that this kid still had some conscience and did not dare to disobey his sister's words. Otherwise, he would have been beaten up miserably today. He stood up and patted the dust off his body. He no longer bothered with Yuan Chao. If there's anything, we'll talk about it when we get back. Let He Dongfeng's wife and children go first. Who are you? Yuan Chao glared angrily at the guy who ruined his good deed. His sister could order him around, hit him, and whip him. He could do anything, but an outsider could not. Yuan Qingxuang saw her brother's angry look and understood his thoughts. She did not reprimand him. Instead, she stood beside Su Yun and said to Yuan Chao seriously, "He's Su Yun. You should call him brother. If it wasn't for him, I'm afraid you wouldn't have the chance to see me in this lifetime. If it wasn't for him, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to go home in this lifetime." Hearing Yuan Qingxuang say that she was going home, Yuan Chao's heart was touched. He knew the reason why his sister ran away from home, so it was hard to imagine that his sister could go back. If you dare to be disrespectful to him again, don't blame me for teaching you how to be a person again. Yuan Qingxuang said very seriously. This guy. Yuan Chao sighed in his heart. Su Yun. What a Su Yun. To be able to make my sister so devoted to you, he was obviously a talent. No matter what, Yuan Chao's opinion of Su Yun had changed slightly. Moreover, he saw in Yuan Qingxuang's eyes that he could not disobey an order. Chairman Su, how should we deal with this matter? Jean Kwong was still a little nervous. He might not be afraid of big leaders or rich people, but he was definitely afraid of this kind of person who did not care about his life. For these people who did not care about their lives, Jean Kwong would hide as far away as he could. Su Yun knew that his words were not persuasive in front of Ruan Chao, so he shrugged. It seemed that this matter still needed to be resolved by Ruan Qingshuang. President Jean, I'll have to trouble you to bring Mrs. He and the others back. Ruan Qingshuang said, I have a presumptuous request. Although this matter is my brother's fault, I still hope that this matter can be resolved privately. After all, he didn't do anything irreparable. I just hope that this matter won't be blown up. Jean Kwong nodded repeatedly. Don't worry about this matter, Miss Ruan. I promise you that He Dongfeng will definitely not say a word about this matter to anyone. I dare to use my life as a guarantee. Sister, what are you doing? Only then did Ruan Chao realize that his sister was here to undermine him. He immediately frowned. This is my personal matter. I will definitely take care of it. Take care of what? Ruan Qingshuang glared fiercely at Ruan Chao. I'm telling you, let them go right now. Otherwise, I'll call the police right now. If you want to stop me, then try. I'm your sister. You know what kind of person I am. Sister. Ruan Chao was completely speechless. Su Yun gave Jean Kwong a look, indicating for him to let them go. Jean Kwong trembled as he took 2 steps forward. Seeing that Ruan Chao did not react, he let out a sigh of relief. Ruan Qingshuang said indifferently, I know everything that has happened to you these years. I understand. But this is definitely not a reason for you to take this path of revenge. There are still parents at home. They have been waiting for news of you, their son. Today, if you insist on being stubborn, even if sister dies, I will sound your alarm. Ruan Chao did not dare to say anything else. Of course, he understood his sister. She meant what she said. Su Yun was shocked by Ruan Qingshuang's aura. He really did not expect Ruan Qingshuang to have such a strong side. This was probably called, everything has its weakness, right? However, Su Yun was more curious about Ruan Chao's skills. An expert was not something that anyone could become. How many people could not even get a glimpse of the door in their entire lives? Ruan Chao had disappeared for a few years, but he had actually become an expert. There was one thing that Su Yun was sure of. There must be an expert behind him. Perhaps, the person who saved his life back then was the person who made him the expert he was today. At this time, Jean Kwong had already hurriedly untied the hands and feet of He Dongfeng's wife and children. He comforted them not to panic and prepared to take them away. Su Yun motioned for him to leave quickly. They would take care of things here. Jean Kwong did not hesitate and rushed downstairs with the 2 hostages. Chapter 9:15. Come with me. Ruan Qingshuang didn't mean to reprimand him. She hadn't seen her brother for so many years. How could she bear to reprimand him? Ruan Chao was obviously controlling his emotions. His current inner world was filled with all sorts of emotions. He was apologetic to his family, disgusted with He Dongfeng, and grateful to the heavens for letting him meet his sister again. He tried his best to extinguish the burning anger in his heart before saying faintly, Sister, I can't go back. I'm no longer the weak little brother you used to be. I've changed. Even if you become a god, you're still my brother. Ruan Qingshuang said bluntly. The tradition of her hometown was that her feelings for her family could never be changed. Not to mention that she wasn't married yet. Even if she was, her feelings for her family would never be bland. If you have any nonsense to say it after you leave this place with us. Su Yun, although I believe in Jean Kwong, I don't believe in He Dongfeng's family. They might give him face in front of Jean Kwong. But if Jean Kwong leaves and they really call the police, it's not something we can predict. Although what you did was an attempt, it's enough to sentence you to 2 years. Although Ruan Chao's opinion of Su Yun was slightly better than before, it didn't mean that he would listen to Su Yun's suggestion. Outsiders don't have the right to interfere with my family's matters. I'm giving my sister face by not touching you. You better have a clear light in your heart and don't give me any orders. You don't have that right. What the F asterisk CK? Su Yun really wanted to slap this brat's head. I've been in the Dragon Fury team for so many years, and it's fine that I came to this world to mingle in the underworld. I've always been the master who gives orders. Even super experts who are much more powerful than you have to give me full face. You actually dare to throw me in the face? Of course he has that right. He's my man. Whatever he says is equivalent to what I say. Whatever he says, you have to listen to it. Unless I don't have that so-called right in your heart. Ruan Qingxuang changed her usual style and actually said such words. Not only was Ruan Chao shocked, but also Su Yun. Was this Ruan Qingxuang? It seemed like she had been influenced by Zhua Meiyan's strong woman personality. Wasn't Zhua Meiyan just like that? Other than Su Yun, she was quite domineering towards everyone else. And now, Ruan Qingxuang was like this. Her strong attitude towards her younger brother was no different from how Zhua Meiyan taught Zhua Yeming. Ruan Chao's jaw almost dropped to the ground. He pointed at Su Yun in disbelief. Sis, you're not joking with me, right? I definitely won't allow it. If a man doesn't even have basic strength, how can he protect you? He can't even beat me. I don't agree. The brother-in-law I want must be strong. Expert. Do you think you're an expert just because you're a weakling? Ruan Qingxuang was obviously speechless at her younger brother's self-confidence. If she had known Su Yun before, she would have definitely seen her younger brother as an expert among experts. But now, it was different. She had experienced too much and seen too much. From the beginning of the Four Wolves gang, then to Cong Ying and Qin Hu, then to Green Ghost, and then to Hades' King Leng Chen. Ruan Qingxuang was no longer that weak and ignorant girl. Hearing his sister say that he was a weakling, Ruan Chao was of course very surprised. After a few years of hard training, he was a dignified second-rate expert. But his sister actually said that he was a weakling? If it wasn't for your brother Su Yun being hurt by bad people, you wouldn't even be worthy to carry his shoes. Ruan Qingxuang wasn't worried about hurting her younger brother's self-esteem at all. What she said was the truth. A second-rate expert really wasn't worthy to carry Su Yun's shoes. Ruan Chao wouldn't believe it even if he was beaten to death. Even if his sister said it, he wouldn't believe it. Bull Shasterisk T. He was a second-rate expert. Out of 1,000,000 people, there might not even be one who could reach his state of mind. Su Yun wasn't in the mood to talk about this. We'll talk about this later. Let's go back to Shen Jiang first. I said, don't order me around. I won't go with you. Ruan Chao looked at Su Yun and frowned. Ruan Qingxuang directly said, okay, you won't go, right? I'll call the police. This kidnapping was all arranged by me. If you turn yourself in, you might be treated leniently. I won't let you go to jail, but if you don't go, someone will have to take responsibility for this. Sister. Aren't you forcing me? You forced me first. Ruan Qingxuang glared and said, are you going with me or not? I'll ask you one last time. As she said this, Ruan Qingxuang had already taken out her phone. Looking at her posture, she was really going to call the police. Su Yun grinned. Sister Shuang's temper was simply not the same as last night's gentleness. Cough cough. Now wasn't the time to think about last night's gentleness. I didn't expect that I, the great Yen Long, would be no different from an ordinary person after my true energy was damaged. I couldn't even beat a kid with the strength of an ordinary expert. If this kid dared to be disobedient in the past, Su Yun would have raised his hand to knock him out and take him away. However, things were different now. Even though Su Yun was mentally prepared, he still couldn't accept the fact that he couldn't even beat an ordinary expert. Okay. I'll listen to you. Ruan Chao was finally convinced in front of his sister. What else could he do? After all, Ruan Qingxuang was his biological sister. Even if he didn't listen to his father, he definitely didn't dare to disobey his sister's words. He knew his own sister's personality very well. Ruan Qingxuang's heart that was in her throat finally relaxed. Then let's leave Nanjiang now. Ruan Chao was unwilling. He had waited for so many years for an opportunity to take revenge, but now he missed it because of his sister. He was unwilling. Other than being unwilling, he was still unwilling. The three of them walked out of the canning factory that had long since declared bankruptcy. Jin Kuang had already driven He Dongfeng's wife and children away. Su Yun got into his car. Ruan Qingxuang opened the back door and motioned for Ruan Chao to get in. Ruan Chao wasn't in a hurry to get in. He first opened the lid of the pickup truck's fuel tank, then jumped into the trunk of the pickup truck. He opened a white plastic bucket and began to pour gasoline into the roof and trunk of the pickup truck. The pungent smell of gasoline quickly entered Su Yun's nose. This kid was good. He was already prepared to destroy the evidence. After the bucket of gasoline was poured, Ruan Chao and Ruan Qingxuang got into the car. Su Yun started the car and prepared to leave. Ruan Chao rolled down the window, wiped the lighter, and threw it directly at the pickup truck. Su Yun and this kid had a tacit understanding. They immediately stepped on the accelerator and left. The car drove less than 100 meters away. The pickup truck exploded with a bang and then fell into a sea of fire. Ruan Chao looked back at the raging fire. The hatred in his heart seemed to be burned away bit by bit with the fire. Ruan Qingxuang knew that he had his troubles in his heart, but she didn't say anything to comfort him. It was very quiet in the car. Su Yun silently drove away from Nanjiang City and headed straight for Shenzhen. He would leave the rest to Jin Kuang. No matter what, he owed Jin Kuang a favor. He didn't know what this shrewd tycoon would ask of him in the future. Chapter 916. On the highway to Shenzhen, Jin Kuang called to ask about the situation. Su Yun said that they had already left Nanjiang. Although Jin Kuang knew that they would definitely leave, he didn't expect it to be so soon. He didn't even have time to treat them to a farewell drink. He assured Su Yun that he had already settled He Dongfeng's side. Not only would He Dongfeng not pursue the matter, but his wife and son were also willing to pretend that this matter had never happened. This was for the best. However, Su Yun didn't believe him. He still asked Jin Kuang to tell He Dongfeng that if they really wanted to pursue the matter, it was best to prepare their own escape route as soon as possible. Unless they could hide on the moon, he could find them again to talk about this matter in any corner of the world. Although Su Yun's tone was very calm and indifferent, it had to be said that this was a disguised threat. Su Yun didn't want him to do this, but if he didn't do this, it would be difficult to ensure that He Dongfeng's family would really keep their mouths shut. Su Yun didn't want Ruan Chao to cause trouble for them, and he didn't want them to cause trouble for Ruan Chao even more. He Dongfeng's family was waiting by Jin Kuang's phone. When they heard Su Yun's words, they couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva in panic. After all, in He Dongfeng's eyes, Su Yun was the president of the Taiwan Three Lotus Society, the boss behind the scenes of Shinkai Hotel, and the leader of Sky Entertainment Film and Television Group. Any one of these titles could crush him to death. Jin Kuang repeatedly conveyed He Dongfeng's family's intentions to Su Yun. They definitely wouldn't cause him any trouble in this matter. Jin Kuang also guaranteed that he would definitely satisfy Su Yun. Since Jin Kuang had said so, Su Yun really had no reason to doubt him. After hanging up the phone, Jin Kuang used his own position to put pressure on He Dongfeng. He only needed to tell He Dongfeng that if his involvement with Su Yun was exposed again, he, Hong Tai, would never cooperate with He Dongfeng's small mine again. This was a warning to cut off He Dongfeng's income. He Dongfeng told him to rest assured. Now, even if he had 20 guts, he wouldn't dare to provoke such an extreme guy again. In order to express his sincerity, He Dongfeng even took the initiative to return the 100,000 yuan to Ruan Chao. Jin Kuang could not help but curse. Who the F***ck cares about your money? After being scolded badly, He Dongfeng didn't dare to say anything. After realizing his mistake, he took out the microwave oven-sized jade Buddha at home, hoping that Jin Kuang could pass it on to Chairman Su and the others on his behalf. After this matter, they would turn hostility into friendship. They were all friends, and it was easy to talk. Only then was Jin Kwang satisfied. He and He Dongfeng were both people who liked to collect antiques. They knew the value of this jade Buddha. He grinned at He Dongfeng. It was worth it to exchange something worth a few million for the lives of his family. Of course, Jin Kwang wouldn't take it for free. He promised De Hong Tai to help him earn back this money as soon as possible. After the car drove out of the Shenzhong Expressway, Su Yun yawned. He had only driven the entire night. When they arrived at Shenzhong, it was already 3:30 in the morning. "We're staying here?" Ruan Chao was stunned for a moment. Soon, he realized that wasn't the case. When the hotel security saw that Director Su's car had returned, they immediately came out to welcome him. They even asked if they should call their security chief, Dan Jiahao. At this time, Su Yun didn't want to disturb the others, so he told the security guard not to inform anyone. He was also sleepy. Now, he just wanted to sleep. When the people in the housekeeping department saw Su Yun and Ruan Qingshuang, they were also very surprised. This time was really late. Ruan Qingshuang also didn't let the people on duty in the housekeeping department not to inform anyone. Just prepare 3 rooms for them. She just wanted to rest now. As for why 3 rooms, perhaps it was because she was too embarrassed to admit that she and Su Yun had already had sex in front of her brother. So he's so rich. When Ruan Chao said this, there was more or less some disdain. It seemed that he was disdainful of Su Yun, and also seemed to have some opinions about his sister. Ruan Chao's family was poor since he was young. Moreover, Ruan Qingshuang almost married a rich person in their mountain village because of a little betrothal gift money. In addition, he was once tricked by the rich He Dongfeng in Nanjiang, so Ruan Chao more or less had a hatred for the rich in his bones. Previously, he didn't know who Su Yun was, but now that he saw him in such a luxurious 5-star hotel, as if he was in his own home, he realized that this brother-in-law of his was really extraordinarily rich. He didn't expect that his sister, who had always been materialistic, would become worldly after a few years of baptism in the city. Ruan Chao felt a little suffocated in his heart, but he couldn't flare up. This feeling was really not good. It made him extremely uncomfortable. "It's not what you think." Ruan Qingshuang didn't explain much to her brother. She knew that as long as she brought her brother home, his opinion of Su Yun would change. "It's getting late. You must be tired. Rest early." Ruan Chao nodded. Seeing that his sister didn't want to say more, he obediently went to his room to rest. This time, Ruan Chao slept very soundly. The appearance of his family gave him great comfort. That was why he could sleep so soundly. Ruan Chao almost couldn't remember when was the last time he slept so soundly. When he woke up, the scorching sun was scorching the earth. Ruan Chao stretched. He went to the bathroom to take a shower, washing away all the tiredness and fatigue in his body. When he walked out of the room, he saw a guy with an unlit cigarette waiting for him at the door. "Brother, how did you sleep?" The guy with the cigarette was none other than Chong. Su Yun and Ruan Qingshuang were already in Yi Fala's office. "Who are you?" Ruan Chao asked cautiously. Chong reached out his hand to introduce himself. However, Ruan Chao didn't seem to buy it. Not only did he not shake his hand, he didn't even make a sound. Although he was being ignored, Chong didn't bicker with him. "Let's go. Sister Shuang and Brother Yun are waiting for you. I'll bring you there." Ruan Chao just nodded and followed behind Chong. He still didn't say a word. It wasn't that he didn't want to talk, but he didn't know what to say. The world he was in now was a world he had never come into contact with before. He needed time to adapt. Soon, Chong brought him to Yi Fala's office. Everyone was waiting to see what Sister Shuang's brother looked like. The first thing they saw was the shocking scar on his face. Ruan Chao seemed to be used to people's silent reactions after seeing his scar. He silently walked to his sister's side. Ruan Qingshuang gave him a simple introduction of everyone. Ruan Chao's reaction was only to nod. He didn't like to talk to strangers. "Qingshuang, I didn't expect your brother to be an expert." Yi Fala smiled. She only needed to use her strong mental state as a first-class expert to test Yuan Chao's strength. Not bad. Second-class mental state at such a young age. Not simple. Yuan Chao was stunned. He could clearly feel the strength of the woman in front of him. It was said that there was always someone better than you. However, he had never met an expert who was stronger than him. Today he finally saw it. He was at a loss for what to do for a moment. Don't be nervous. We're all on the same side. Su Yun could see his restraint. Your sister Shuang's family, so you're our family. It's better for everyone to open up. Chapter 917. Yuan Chao, I know you must have encountered something over the years. Of course, I won't ask you. If you want to talk about it, you will naturally talk to your sister. Su Yun, but no matter what kind of things you encounter, you shouldn't let yourself forget all the past. This is unrealistic. Because you have a family. Do you know how your parents survived all these years? Yuan Chao didn't speak. He knew that although his brother-in-law seemed to be vulnerable in front of him, he was so different from ordinary people. After all, his kick yesterday was enough to break a few ribs of an ordinary person, but Su Yun's body was able to withstand it. Obviously, Su Yun only lost the Zhan Qi that stimulated his strong state of mind, and his muscle strength was still the same as before. The attack power of a second-rate master was not enough to cause internal injuries to Su Yun. Therefore, although Yuan Chao's kick Su Yun couldn't block it, he definitely wouldn't be seriously injured. I know there are some things you don't want to say now. I can wait. Yuan Qingxuang said lightly. I know far more than you think. Yuan Chao was quite shocked. He realized that the people he was facing knew a lot. Even his sister wasn't surprised by the division of strength in the underground world, which meant that she knew all about it. Dan Jiahao, who wasn't present, suddenly knocked on the door and came in. Seeing so many people, he grinned and didn't greet them one by one. He just said to Yifara, Sister Yi Zi, the 2 copper lions you bought have arrived, but those things are too heavy. It's impossible to place them without a machine. I'll contact the crane. Where do you want the carriage to park the lions? The backyard? Yifara bought 2 copper lions more than 10 meters tall and placed them on both sides of the hotel's main entrance. They replaced the previous 2 5 meters tall stone lions to make Xinkai Hotel look more imposing. This was the first step in her plan to upgrade the hotel. There were many 5-star hotels in Huaxia, especially in a place like Shenzhen. They were everywhere, so she had the idea to build a 6-star hotel in Huaxia. I'm still here. Why do you need a crane? Li Moran patted his chest. I'll go with you. At that time, when he took away the 2 stone lions, Li Moran had shown everyone his terrifying strength, but Dan Jiahao still didn't believe that he could move the copper lion that was N times heavier than the stone lion. He opened his mouth wide in shock. Brother Ran, you're not joking with me, right? That thing is much heavier than you think. Li Moran confidently went downstairs with Dan Jiahao. Everyone walked to the window and looked at Li Moran's strange strength with surprise. But no matter how surprised everyone was, they were not as surprised as Yuan Chao. Such a tall pure copper lion, even an expert several times stronger than him would not be able to handle it. Li Moran only asked the porter downstairs to help him use the principle of leverage to remove the rope to control the balance of the copper lion. Then, he began to move and hold the copper lion bit by bit. Just looking at it was thrilling. Such a big copper lion was enough to crush a person into a meat patty. Little Northeast had sharp eyes and quick hands. When he saw that the rope was not properly handled, he directly opened the window and slipped downstairs along the edge of the window. He quickly climbed to the top of the copper lion, re-handled the rope, and then jumped down with a somersault. One of them had a strange strength comparable to the King Kong gourd, and the other was as agile as the wind like an elf. The onlookers were amazed. It took about half an hour for the 2 of them to set up the copper lion. Even Li Moran had to wipe the sweat from his forehead. These 2 big guys were really heavy. He had never encountered such heavy things before. In this half an hour, Yuan Chao was deeply aware of his own insignificance. What kind of guys are these? More importantly, these guys actually bowed their heads to Su Yun and called him Big Brother Yun. They called him Big Brother Yun with great respect. This made Yuan Chao curious about Su Yun. He couldn't figure out what kind of person Su Yun was. During this time, Lin Gu, who was far away in the Caribbean Sea, didn't stay idle. After introducing Feng Ye to the old man and the others, he explained the purpose of his return this time. Obviously, evil god Lu Xuanji was also very surprised after learning about Su Yun's situation. However, they were able to get the seeds of the qi consolidating grass, which really made the old man very pleased. Although Lu Xuanji didn't have direct contact with Huang Fugua, he still tried his best to use his network of contacts to find out about Huang Fugua's whereabouts. This would take time. Lin Gu knew without the old man saying anything. Therefore, during the 2 days of waiting, Lin Gu took Feng Ye to the nearby picturesque islands and ate all the Caribbean cuisine. Lin Gu said that this was where he grew up. Feng Ye didn't believe him at first. Later, she saw that Lin Gu had acquaintances everywhere, and they had good relationships. From the security officers on the island to the old aunties who sold fruits on the street, his acquaintances were everywhere. Lin Ji's charm increased again, and Feng Ye realized that she couldn't leave this man. His hard work paid off. Although the old man was old, he was Lu Xuanji after all. With his connections, he finally found out where Huang Fugua was staying. This profound sky expert who valued health and was full of love for Huaxia, of course, chose the most suitable place for retirement in Huaxia, the South Island. After receiving the news, Lin Gu knew that his trip to the Caribbean Sea was coming to an end. Although it was a short time, his body and mind were quite relaxed. He immediately called Su Yun and told Su Yun the news, asking him to wait for him to fly back and then go to the South Island together. After the 2 copper lions were placed, Su Yun received a call from Lin Gu. After listening to Lin Ji's news, he slightly changed Lin Ji's arrangement. You don't have to go back to the mainland. We'll meet directly at the South Island. The journey is about the same. Let me know when you book the ticket. I'll be ready to leave immediately. When everyone heard Su Yun hang up the phone, they realized that the turn of events had come. I talked to Mei Yan on the phone. She said that the qi consolidating grass is in full bloom. Ruan Qingxuang said. She didn't tell Su Yun about these things before. She was worried that if she told him, Su Yun would be anxious and not be able to find the person they were looking for. But now it seemed that Lin Gu had found a clue. Su Yun was quite excited about this news. Since that was the case, everything was ready except for the east wind. Su Yun immediately called Zhuo Meiyan and asked her to send the qi consolidating grass over by express delivery. But how could Zhuo Meiyan dare to send such an important thing by express delivery? She arranged the things in her hands to Zhuo Yeming, and then personally asked Wang Zhe to drive to Shenzhen with the qi consolidating grass. Because Su Yun didn't want anyone to interfere in this matter, no one clamored to go with him. Although Ruan Qingxuang wanted to accompany Su Yun, she knew very well that Su Yun wouldn't agree. So she didn't want to waste time. As soon as Su Yun left, she would immediately take Ruan Chao home to visit her parents. She wanted Ruan Chao to understand Su Yun through various things. Because her body and mind belonged to this man, she must let her brother understand and respect him. This was the first thing Ruan Qingxuang had to do now. Chapter 9:18. Nanhai Island was definitely the most suitable city for humans to live in the entire Huaxia. Compared with metropolises such as Yanjing and Xinjiang, the air quality of Nanhai Island was simply like heaven. Although it couldn't be compared with some holy places such as natural oxygen bars abroad, at least people didn't need to worry about exceeding the PM index when they went out. They also didn't need to wear masks even when driving and calculate that their chances of honorable lung cancer would increase by a few 10,000ths. One thing to admit was that since Huaxia's reform and opening up, in just a few decades, some families in Huaxia who had gone from being poor to being unable to afford to eat rice and vegetables were moving towards the peak and glory step by step. They were no longer short of food and clothing, and even had a lot of money with nowhere to spend. They were afraid that the saddest thing in life, death, no money to spend, would happen to them. They hurriedly escaped from metropolises such as Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangzhou that made them rich, and settled down in a place that was suitable for recuperation and dared to breathe the air. As a result, the living environment of Nanhai Island was no longer as comfortable as it was 10 years ago. All kinds of high-displacement luxury cars appeared one after another. Some people in Huaxia who wanted to get rich first repeated their means of destroying the living environment, once again destroying this beautiful island. But many people were simply unaware of what they had done. This was the tragedy of some human beings. For some reason, although the people of Huaxia were great, they were still the people in the world who didn't know how to pay attention to environmental protection. This had a lot to do with the poverty of the past. Knowledge determined a person's personal behavior, and it also determined the behavior of a region and a country. Su Yun walked out of the airport, took a deep breath, and enjoyed the clear blue sky and white clouds. He really hoped that the next generation and the descendants of Huaxia could be aware of the environmental problems of Huaxia. He didn't want this country to become a huge graveyard one day. The earth was a paradise for human beings to survive, and it really couldn't withstand the destruction and cruelty of generations. Fortunately, Huang Fuguo's feelings for Huaxia were too deep. Otherwise, with his mentality, he would have migrated to a more suitable place for human beings to live. Nanhai Island, one of the few remaining hazy cities in Huaxia, he really hoped that it could continue like this. "Brother, you're finally here." Lin Ji's call made Su Yun stop in his tracks. Su Yun turned his head and was really quite surprised because not only did he see Lin Gu, but he also saw the beautiful flight attendant, Fang Ye. The two of them were actually together. Phew, Lin Gu, this brat, was really something. He didn't forget to fall in love even when he was dealing with serious matters. This child was worth teaching. "Since you two have met, it's time for me to say goodbye," Fang Ye said. She flew back to Nanhai Island with Lin Gu, and then transferred to a flight back to Shenzhen. Su Yun only found out about this later. If he had known earlier, he would have let Lin Gu fly back to Shenzhen and come with him. Leaving so soon? Su Yun didn't know that she went to the Caribbean islands with Lin Gu. Fang Ye nodded generously. "Yes, I have to go back to work. Maybe when you go back, you will take my flight." Lin Gu sighed in his heart. This was fate, but he didn't say anything. He sent Fang Ye to the waiting room with gentle eyes. Her flight back to Shenzhen was about to take off soon. She didn't have time to delay. After Fang Ye left, Lin Gu took out an address written on a note for Su Yun. In order to find this place, Lu Xuanji spent a lot of effort and used a lot of favors. His only hope was that these two brats really had the ability to persuade Huang Fuguo to refine medicine for him. He couldn't help with this matter. It wasn't that he didn't want to give up his old face to help Su Yun, but his old face really didn't have any face in front of Huang Fuguo. This was the thing that gave Lu Xuanji a headache. Even his old face might not give face, let alone these two brats. He really didn't have any confidence in this matter. However, Su Yun, this brat, had been blessed since he was young. Lu Xuanji believed that maybe a miracle would happen. Maybe Huang Fuguo would feel that Su Yun was fated when he saw him, then the rest of the matter would be much easier. Unfortunately, this was all wishful thinking on Lu Xuanji's part. Su Yun and Lin Gu were facing a cold face. This was already the third day that Su Yun and Lin Gu waited in front of this address. The owner of the room still didn't want to be disturbed and didn't come out to see them at all. Huang Fuguo had long wanted to lose the title of one of the three kings, but no one had the ability to replace him in these years. However, this didn't affect his carefree life. He lived on a stone mountain on a bay. The three-story building made of pure wood was comfortable and pleasant. He didn't have any servants or subordinates. He was the only person in the entire residence. He didn't want to be disturbed by anyone. If someone wanted to disturb his dreams, he would definitely not be merciful. Of course, there were some people who needed his help. As long as he insisted on not going out and not receiving them for 2 days, those people would naturally leave disheartened. Anyway, Those who needed his help were in awe of him and didn't dare to be disrespectful to him. However, the two brats he met this time were very stubborn. He hadn't seen them for 3 days, but they were still waiting at the door. If Huang Fu Guo still had ingredients in the kitchen that could make soft cakes, he would definitely continue to let these two brats wait outside the door. But now, Huang Fu Guo had to go out to buy some food. He could stay at home for 3 days and concentrate on raising the flowers and feeding the koi, but he could not eat. Huang Fu Guo, who was determined to maintain his health, knew very well how important it was for a person to have a regular work and rest schedule and eat on time. Therefore, in the end, he couldn't endure the two brats waiting outside the door. He opened the door with his electric scooter. Without waiting for Su Yun and Lin Gu to surround him, Huang Fu Guo spoke first. "If you want me to help you with anything, then first learn to respect me. Right now, I only want to go out and buy things. I don't want to talk to anyone else, understand?" Huang Fu Guo, this was the Sky Profound Realm expert who was known as one of the three kings. The most important thing is to care about the Sky Profound Realm. His perfect state of mind exuded an irresistible aura. This kind of aura of a monarch overlooking the world was something that Su Yun and Lin Gu couldn't resist. They knew very well that if Huang Fu Guo said so, then anything they did would be futile and would even be disliked. Lin Gu originally wanted to say something, but Su Yun gestured for him to move aside, allowing Huang Fu Guo to leisurely drive the electric scooter away. Because there were two brats with good aptitudes guarding the door, Huang Fu Guo didn't even lock the door. This saved him a lot of trouble. It was hard to tell whether this old man was 50, 60, or 70 years old. What was he thinking? Su Yun and Lin Gu couldn't figure it out, but they had no choice. They could only rely on his kindness. No matter what, even if they were treated coldly, at least they met Huang Fu Guo face to face. "Old Master Huang Fu, don't worry. We'll take care of the house. There definitely won't be any problems," Su Yun said confidently to Huang Fu Guo's back. Chapter 919. Lin Gu looked at Su Yun in confusion. After a while, he finally voiced out his doubts. "Brother, I'm starting to wonder if my old man made a mistake. This guy, is he really Huang Fu Guo? He can't just be a substitute, right? Look, what's the difference between him and an ordinary middle-aged man? He drives a car and goes out to buy groceries. I really can't believe that one of the three kings actually lives like this." Yes, this was different from what Su Yun had imagined. The supreme expert of the underground world actually lived alone in the South China Sea. Not to mention the protection of his subordinates and servants, he didn't even have anyone to cook or buy groceries by his side. Was this really one of the three kings, Huang Fu Guo? Was this really the guy who could move the underground world with just a sneeze? Anyone who saw this would have doubts in their heart. It wasn't just Su Yun and Lin Gu who had doubts. But what could they do now that things had come to this? Stop him and ask him if he was telling the truth? Doing so would undoubtedly cause trouble for themselves. If they guessed right, they wouldn't get any benefits. If they were wrong, they would even make the other party furious. After all, Su Yun had a favor to ask, so he could only compromise. The two of them waited like a year. Time was like a drunkard, walking slower and slower. Su Yun waited until the sky darkened before he saw the old man's car slowly drive back. Lin Gu couldn't help but chuckle. He wasn't laughing at others, but at himself. Who would believe that Huang Fu Guo was driving an old car? Sigh, he really suspected that he had entered a fantasy world. Everything was so illusory and ethereal. He would be the first to not believe that the person in front of him was Huang Fu Guo. However, Su Yun didn't say anything. Lin Gu could only stand aside obediently and wait for the result. The old man's car slowly drove in front of the two of them. Huang Fu Guo stopped the car and rolled down the window. He pouted his lips and said to the two of them, "A few bad boys saw that I was generous and followed me all the way here. If you are really sincere, then settle this matter for me." "All right." Su Yun nodded and followed Huang Fu Guo's path. Four hooligans on 3 motorcycles slowly tailed them. Lin Gu couldn't take it anymore. Brother, this old man can't even handle a few hooligans, and you still believe that he's Huang Fu Guo? Su Yun had the same doubts, but he had no choice. Before he could be sure, he would try his best to satisfy the old man. This was related to the refining of the qi consolidating pill. Su Yun really needed to consolidate his qi meridians. From the first time you met me, I told you that you found the wrong person. Huang Fu Guo was still angry. Why don't you leave? Why do you insist that I'm the person you're looking for? Now that the old lady is in danger, you think you found the wrong person. Young man, you can't be so deceptive. Lin Gu was checkmated instead. He was speechless. This old man was right. The 4 hooligans had already arrived in front of them. These old men and women who came out alone to buy daily necessities were their new targets. Most of these old men and women who came out alone lived alone. Their wives died, and their children were not by their side. Their families had some money, so they came to Nanhai Island to retire. When these hooligans saw Huang Fu was generous spending and casually sold things for a few thousand yuan, they were sure that this old man's family must have some foundation. They wouldn't rob him openly. They would use flowery words to trick the old man into following them into his house and steal some valuable things to sell. Last time, they tricked an old lady into entering her house. One chatted with her, one poured tea for her, another swept and mopped the floor, and the last one rummaged through the old lady's drawers and took out all the gold and silver jewelry that the old lady had spent a lifetime with. Today's account had been spent. They had to concoct a new plan, and Huang Fu Guo was the rich old man they targeted. Sir, do you live alone? Is there anything we can help you with? The 4 of them walked forward and looked at Su Yun and Lin Gu warily. The leader of the group said, "You're old, so it must be inconvenient for you to move around. You live alone in such a big place. It must be troublesome to clean, right? We're from the Association of Elderly Volunteers. We'll do housework for you for free." Association of Elderly Volunteers? This is the first time I've heard of it. Lin Gu said disdainfully. What kind of idiot would come up with such a ridiculous name for an organization? These 4 unemployed youths were simply trying to show off their low IQ. Hearing someone speak against them, the 4 hooligans were obviously unhappy. The strongest guy glared at Lin Gu and said, "Of course you haven't heard of it. Our association is full of caring young people. I see you 2 sneaking around. What are you doing in front of the old lady's house? Could it be a burglar? Do you believe I'll call the police? Do you want me to call the police for you?" Su Yun didn't know whether to laugh or cry. A few lowly hooligans actually used such a trick. After Su Yun finished speaking, she took out her phone. "Are you sure the police will arrest us and not you when they come?" The leader's mouth twitched and he said coldly, "Then who are you 2? If I say we're in the same industry, would you believe me?" Su Yun raised his eyebrows provocatively. "Have you heard of the saying that people in the same industry are enemies?" Su Yun nodded. "Of course I have. Since we're enemies, what are we waiting for? Let's do it." "Wait a minute," the leader of the ruffians hurriedly said. As he stopped his 3 brothers who were ready to move, he said to Huang Fu Guodao, "Old man, I'm different from them. Don't worry, with me here, I won't let these 2 brats succeed. I'm sincerely learning from Lei Feng as an example." Su Yun shook his head and sighed. "Can you not insult the name Lei Feng?" "I'll kill you," the leader of the hooligans explained to Huang Fu Guo and was the first to pounce on Su Yun. Although it was easy for Su Yun to deal with these hooligans, Lin Gu didn't need Su Yun to make a move. Su Yun just took a step back and gave Lin Gu space to dodge. Lin Gu single-handedly threw the 4 ruffians to the ground with a few punches and kicks. The gap in strength couldn't be filled. The 4 hooligans were either holding their crotch and crying, or holding their heads between their legs. One word: miserable. Get lost. The next time you follow me, it won't be so simple. Huang Fu Guo snorted at the 4 hooligans, as if he had already arranged this scene. After the 4 hooligans scurried away, Lin Gu couldn't help but doubt the old man's identity. Why would the great Huang Fu Gua need them to help him deal with a few hooligans? Just the pressure of a profound Sky Realm expert's aura would be enough to make those 4 crazy. Old Master Huang Fu, your test for us should be about done, right? Can you let us in now? Su Yun said respectfully. This junior really has something very important that I need your help with. I hope you can give me a chance. Huang Fu Gua sized up Su Yun and suddenly said, You're that Yen Long who was trained by Wan Guangxiao's subordinate, Wang Yi, right? Su Yun was startled. Huang Fu Gua actually mentioned the name of their Dragon Brigade's captain, Wan Guangxiao. How did you know? Su Yun couldn't help but frown. He hadn't contacted anyone from the Dragon Brigade recently. I just know. Huang Fu Gua said. You two seem to have some loyalty. Come in with me. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.